Chapter 1001. Although Jitian Fu was helpless, he knew that Su Yi had once saved his daughter's life. This debt of gratitude was something that had to be repaid. However, it seemed that his precious daughter wanted to marry him. No one knew her better than her father. "Thank you, father." Ji Hanol was overjoyed by Ji Tianfu's words. At the same time, her face blushed, and she became extremely happy. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days had passed. In the cave, Su Yi, the Green Emperor, and the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead were sitting cross-legged, quietly cultivating. Only handsome Su was wandering back and forth, muttering, "So boring, so boring." Handsome Su did not dare to run out. He knew that the situation was tense, so it was better for him to stay in seclusion. Otherwise, Su Yi would definitely lock him up in the mysterious space. Huff, huff, huff. Su Yi and the other two would fluctuate from time to time, causing the cave to tremble slightly. If they had not set up a strict restriction spell around the cave, the fluctuations would have caused a huge commotion. The Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead were at the peak of the LV5 Demon Emperor realm. After a few days of meditation, they finally stabilized their cultivation. The benefits from the Golden Dragon's blood essence had allowed them to advance by leaps and bounds, and they had mastered some more powerful techniques. On Su Yi's body, there was a sizzling sound. One could see with the naked eye that one of his ribs on his chest had turned red, as if it was about to melt. The high temperature filled the cave, making it extremely hot. In the past 3 days, Su Yi had cultivated the Yuanyang Sky Bone twice. The rich spiritual qi entered his body and turned into abundant vital qi in the Great Void Divine Sea. Then, it entered the heart of Heavenly Sun and turned into true Yang fire, which was used to refine the bones. After 2 rounds of cultivation, the second rib was completely refined and turned into a real Yuanyang sky bone. This kind of process could be said to be quite slow, and there was also a certain amount of danger. One had to carefully control the true Yang fire, otherwise a dangerous situation would occur. However, Su Yi had also benefited greatly. He could clearly feel the changes in his bones that had been tempered. He even felt that the 2 ribs contained a vast amount of energy that he could use. If he could completely refine all the bones in his body, wouldn't that be extremely abnormal? However, he also knew that this process would most likely take a very long time. At this rate, it would take at least a few years to cultivate the primordial Yang heavenly bone. Phew! Su Yi exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. The energy in his body had been depleted, and he looked a little weak. After a short period of recovery, his complexion improved a little. "Master!" Seeing that Su Yi had woken up, the Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor opened their eyes and looked at him at the same time. "Green Emperor, stay outside to protect us." "Yin-Yang Hell Emperor, come with me. Let's go check on the spirit-devouring Emperor," Su Yi said to the 2 of them. Then, he led the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor and Su Xiaoshui into the mysterious space. "Secmaster, you're here." At this time, Huang Jian had already woken up. When he saw Su Yi and the others coming in, he immediately stepped forward. "Guardian Huang has recovered." Su Yi smiled slightly. When he saw Huang Jian's appearance, he knew that he had recovered from his injuries. Then, he turned to look at the spirit-devouring Emperor and asked, "Spirit-devouring Emperor, have you thought about it for the past few days?" The spirit-devouring Emperor was very stubborn. Su Yi knew that it would not be easy to subdue him. Therefore, he did not use any violent means to force him to submit. He just let him think about it. However, he would not wait forever. If the spirit-devouring Emperor did not submit, he would have to use some special methods. Of course, this method would not be to cut off his flesh and eat it. After all, whether the flesh of the ice marrow gold-devouring worm was delicious or not aside, Su Yi did not like to eat worms. In the face of Su Yi's question, the spirit-devouring Emperor just looked at him quietly and did not answer. Instead, he gently closed his eyes, as if he did not want to talk to Su Yi. However, he seemed to be thinking about something in his heart. Su Yi chuckled and said, "It seems that you still haven't thought it through." Although he said so, he knew that the spirit-devouring Emperor might not be able to put down his pride. Therefore, Su Yi turned to the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead beside him and said, "Release the inhibition on him." "Yes, master." The Yin-Yang Hell Emperor did not delay and quickly removed the restriction on the spirit-devouring emperor. In this way, the spirit-devouring emperor immediately recovered part of his strength, and his spiritual sense was instantly enhanced. In his perception, there was a faint, terrifying aura in the space, which made his beast soul tremble. He felt as if he was facing a supreme god and could not resist at all. When he was imprisoned before, he could feel a similar aura, but it was not as strong as this one. "I give you an opportunity, and you follow me. Or I will suppress you completely first, and then force you to submit to me. You have two options. Choose one. It's up to you." Su Yi looked at the spirit-devouring emperor and said indifferently. As he spoke, there was a terrifying power flowing in the mysterious space. It was as deep as the abyss and as vast as the sea, surging and surging, which made the spirit-devouring emperor's expression change. At this moment, the spirit-devouring emperor only felt that the young man in front of him was like a supreme god with an inviolable will, which made him want to crawl. What a terrifying aura! The spirit-devouring emperor was shocked. He tried hard to suppress this feeling. In fact, in the past few days, his heart had been shaken. He had completely believed in the benefits that Su Yi promised. Whether it was the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor's great change, the blood Jasper Ginseng's words, or the yellow-robed elder's healing process, the spirit-devouring emperor felt unusual. Because of this, the spirit-devouring emperor was eager to get the benefits that Su Yi promised. "Human, how about we make a deal?" The spirit-devouring emperor finally spoke. He looked at Su Yi and said, "I can work for you, but I can't submit to you. If you can't agree to this condition, then forget it." Hearing this, Su Yi could not help but raise his eyebrows and stare at the spirit-devouring emperor. "It seems that you still don't understand what I mean, or you don't understand the current situation." Chapter 1002. As he spoke, Su Yi's brows furrowed. The devouring spirit emperor might have been shaken, but as an expert in the monster royal realm, it was difficult for him to submit to humans so easily due to his arrogance. However, Su Yi was not going to waste any more time with the devouring spirit emperor. If there was no other way, he would have to spend some effort to subdue it by force. The arrangement of the monster spirit contract was dangerous, and it was under the condition that the savage beast did not resist. It was even more dangerous for Su Yi to forcibly place his soul mark in the devouring spirit emperor's beast soul. But now that things had come to this, he had no other choice. "Human, if that's the case, then we have nothing to talk about." Su Yi's words immediately angered the spirit emperor. His mood, which had already calmed down, became irritable again at this time. As a powerful beast emperor, the devouring spirit emperor had his own pride and stubbornness, which made it impossible for him to lower his head in front of Su Yi. Looking at Su Yi, the devouring spirit emperor continued, "You don't have to threaten me. You can kill me or cut me up as you wish. No matter what means you have, just use them. If I even frown, it's my loss." When the people in the mysterious space heard the devouring spirit emperor's words, they could not help but exclaim, "You old stinking bug, you really don't know what's good for you. You're just relying on the fact that you're an ice marrow spirit devouring bug. Otherwise, I would definitely roast and eat you. Let's see how you can continue to be so stubborn." Next to him, Su Xiaoshui was also dissatisfied. He stared at the devouring spirit emperor with his bird eyes. He was a bird, but a bird that did not eat bugs, because he was a divine bird, the phoenix. Most importantly, he had seen the devouring spirit emperor's true body. Su Xiaoshui could not help but feel disgusted at the thought of eating such a bug. "Do you really think I can't deal with you?" Su Yi's temper suddenly flared up. He did not believe that he could not subdue the devouring spirit emperor. Just as handsome Su had said, if the spirit-devouring emperor was any other savage beast, he would have roasted it and eaten it. In this space, even if you are a dragon, you have to coil up for me, and even if you're a tiger, you have to crouch down for me. Even if you are a demon emperor, you will still be suppressed by me. I have plenty of ways to make you behave. Su-yi stared coldly at the devouring spirit emperor and said word by word. His tone was filled with a strong sense of dominance. He didn't plan to delay any longer. Since the devouring spirit emperor didn't know what was good for him, he planned to use a thunderous method. Invisibly, the mysterious space resounded with the sound of wind and thunder, the roars of dragons and tigers, the cries of birds and turtles. It was as if it had come from the ancient times to the present. It was ancient and mysterious. What followed was an aura that caused one's soul to tremble. It transformed into a monstrous pressure that pressed down on the spirit-devouring emperor. The mysterious space belonged to Su-yi, and although he was unable to manipulate the power of this space, he could still affect some things with a single thought. Su-yi planned to suppress the spirit-devouring emperor and make him suffer a little. Under the pressure of this terrible power, the spirit-devouring emperor groaned. Obviously, he was under great pressure. However, he gritted his teeth and held on. Even though he was in great pain, he didn't beg for mercy from Su-yi. However, at this moment, the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor stepped out and came to Su-yi. He blinked his eyes and bowed, saying, "Master, please show mercy. Let me have a try. Maybe I can persuade the spirit-devouring emperor." Su-yi took a deep look at the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor. After a while, he said, "Okay, I'll give you 30 minutes. With that, he led handsome Su and Huang Jian out of the mysterious space. His actions were swift and clean. The ferocious aura that filled the sky also disappeared in an instant. Su-yi knew that there were some grievances between the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor and the spirit-devouring emperor. Although they weren't friends, they had dealt with each other many times. Since the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor had spoken, it meant that he had a certain degree of confidence. He might not be able to persuade the spirit-devouring emperor, but if he succeeded, it would definitely save Su-yi a lot of trouble. In the mysterious space, the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor and the spirit-devouring emperor faced each other and talked for a while. After 30 minutes, Su-yi came in again. He was very punctual. "Master," the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor stepped forward with a smile on his handsome face. He gave Su-yi a look that said, "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you," which surprised Su-yi. However, he could also imagine that the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor was definitely not trying to persuade the spirit-devouring emperor with emotion and reason. He was probably trying to give the spirit-devouring emperor a way out by promising him something else and using a huge temptation. As expected, the spirit-devouring emperor finally looked at Su-yi and said, "If you want me to submit to you, it depends on what kind of opportunity you get in the end. If you deceive me, I'd rather die." The spirit-devouring emperor didn't call Su-yi human this time. Instead, he just said that softly. He already knew that he couldn't escape. There were only two options, submission or death. The spirit-devouring emperor didn't want to choose either of them. However, the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor had given him a very broad blueprint. Combined with what he had seen in the past few days, the spirit-devouring emperor was really tempted. The spirit-devouring emperor thought that he could give it a try. At worst, he would be prepared to die. Even if he was set up by Su-yi, no one could stop him if he wanted to die. But what if the great opportunity was really as crazy as the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor said? It's totally possible. I promise you won't regret it. Su-yi finally smiled and said, "There's no time to lose. Let's get started now." Su-yi no longer hesitated and immediately began to set up the demon spirit contract. It was not the first time he had used this method. The Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang Hell Emperor both had the demon spirit contract on their souls. This time, it was naturally easy for them to use it again. When the spirit-devouring emperor didn't resist, it was easier for Su-yi to use it. A series of handprints condensed in Su-yi's hands. An ancient and mysterious aura spread out. Under the operation of the heavenly demon ancient scripture, a demonic but not evil aura spread out. The powerful soul power condensed into a seal in the spirit-devouring emperor's mind and finally engraved on his beast soul. When all this was done, a light flashed and Su-yi withdrew his aura. Squeak! When the demon spirit contract was successfully engraved, the the spirit-devouring emperor let out a worm cry. It was as if the sharpest sound pierced straight into one's skull. It was extremely uncomfortable to listen to. Then, with a flash of brilliance, the spirit-devouring emperor suddenly turned into a long white worm about 5 feet long. This long worm was like a centipede, its entire body emitting a kind of icy cold color. Its entire body was suffused with a faint blood-red light, which gave a somewhat frightening feeling. It had no legs, but it had wings as thin as a cicada's, and its head was like a large bee. This was the spirit-devouring emperor's true form, the ice marrow spirit-devouring bug. At this time, the temperature in the mysterious space immediately dropped. He couldn't help but shiver. Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud noise in the mysterious space, like a thunderclap. From the depths of the mysterious space, a mighty aura suddenly fluctuated. Divine light descended, accompanied by a boundless aura. Multicolored light filled the sky and suddenly enveloped the spirit-devouring emperor's true form. Whoosh! The mighty and astonishing aura, accompanied by lightning and thunder, directly poured into the spirit-devouring emperor's ice marrow spirit-devouring bug body. In an instant, the injuries that the spirit-devouring emperor had suffered from the Green Emperor and the Yin Ghost Emperor began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. A mysterious ancient energy directly penetrated into his flesh and blood. Woo! The spirit-devouring emperor roared. His true form stood up, as if he was facing the sky. He welcomed the divine light and greedily absorbed the ancient energy. It's done. Next to him, the Yin Ghost Emperor smiled and murmured to himself. He had experienced something similar and knew that the spirit-devouring emperor was getting a great opportunity at this time. The Yin Ghost Emperor knew very well that once the spirit-devouring emperor got everything, he would definitely be willing to submit to Sui. His stubborn temper would also be restrained, because the power in the mysterious space was something that the demon clan could only look up to. The Bawang sect has one more expert in the demon royal realm. So he also smiled happily. He knew that the spirit-devouring emperor had been recognized by the mysterious space because of the demon spirit contract. Therefore, he was getting the ancient inheritance and benefits. Judging from the situation in the past, no barbaric demonic beast would refuse such an opportunity. No matter how arrogant the demon clan experts were, they would also bow their heads in front of such great benefits. At least this stinking bug knows what's good for him. Standing on Su Yi's shoulder, handsome Su snorted and said. However, he was already satisfied with the result. Under everyone's gaze, when the majestic power in the sky disappeared, the spirit-devouring emperor fell to the ground and turned back into his baby-sized body. After revealing his human form, his old face was still filled with uncontrollable excitement, and at the same time, endless shock. Needless to say, he had not recovered from the benefits he had just received. It's far beyond my expectation to get such benefits. From now on, I am willing to serve you as my master. I will never disobey you. The spirit-devouring emperor took one last look at Sui, and a trace of embarrassment appeared on his face. However, he quickly concealed it and said to Sui solemnly. He could not calm down. At this time, the spirit-devouring emperor was willing to serve Sui as his master. If he had known that he could get such benefits, he would have agreed to Sui's conditions at once. How about it, spirit-devouring emperor? I didn't lie to you, did I? Do you still want to fight to the death? Seeing the spirit-devouring emperor's attitude, the Yin Ghost Emperor said with a sneer. As soon as he said that, the spirit-devouring emperor's face turned red again. From now on, we are on the same side. Don't be so polite. Chapter 1003. You just got some benefits. I think you need some time to comprehend them. Take this. It should help you reach a higher level. Looking at spirit-devouring emperor, Sui handed him a bottle of spiritual liquid. The spiritual liquid would be used up soon. The pool in this space had already dried up. He had to find a way to get a huge amount of energy to create some more spiritual liquid. Otherwise, he would not be able to keep up with the demand. Of course, he did not feel sorry for him at this time. As long as Spirit-Devouring Emperor did not want to die, he would not disobey him, because there was a demon spirit contract in his mind. He regarded him as one of his own. He would never be stingy to his own people. "Thank you, Master." Spirit-Devouring Emperor took the jade bottle with excitement. With his cultivation, he could feel the vast energy fluctuations in the jade bottle. In an instant, he judged that there was definitely a precious treasure in it, which was hard to find in the world. "Hurry up and cultivate. I will come to you in a few days," Sui said. Then he did not disturb Spirit-Devouring Emperor anymore. He led the others out of the mysterious space. Sui felt that Spirit-Devouring Emperor should be able to make a breakthrough after getting the opportunity and giving him the spiritual liquid. He did not dare to say that he would be at the same level as the Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang Ghost Emperor, but it should not be difficult for him to reach LV5 of the Demon Royal Realm. It seems that this area is very lively recently. When Sui and the others returned to the mountain forest, they soon found out some more information. It seemed that the area was very lively these days. A large number of experts appeared in the mountain forest, including the Gimdeo sect, the Green Sanctuary sect, the Seven-Star Sword School, the Lioa sect, the Xinjian sect, and many other rogue cultivators. Some of them had deep gazes that were like hunting eagles, and they seemed to be searching for their prey. Sui knew that these fellows that were in high spirits were probably looking for him for the Big Dipper Sword's reward of 200,000 two-star origin stones. However, these people were destined to be disappointed, because Sui had already used the appearance-changing technique to change his appearance, making himself look like a young man in his 20s. In addition, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian had also changed their outfits at his request. Very few people had seen these three before. After some slight changes, even the people from the Gimdeo sect would have to take a few more glances to recognize them. On the other hand, handsome Su was forcefully stuffed into Su Yi's robe, which caused a wave of strong dissatisfaction. However, after Su Yi rewarded him with a knock on the head, handsome Su immediately became obedient. "It's such a big event, I have to join in," He said coldly after knowing the thoughts of the various major forces and rogue cultivators. The Gimdeo sect and the Seven-Star Sword School were looking for him and wanted to kill him. He would never wait for his death. No matter what, he had to find some trouble for these people. He couldn't let their lives be too easy. He walked in the forest with several people. He felt that he had gathered a lot of powerhouses around him. In addition to his brother, Merciless West, there were the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, Huang Jian, the Spirit-Devouring Emperor, and Handsome Su, whose cultivation was comparable to the Demon Royal Realm. There were already 5 Emperor-level powerhouses. With such strength, He felt that as long as he was not surrounded by a large number of Emperor-level powerhouses, he could do whatever he wanted in this forest. Even if he encountered those from the major forces, even if he could not defeat them, it would be easy for him to escape. However, He still restrained himself and did not show off. There was still more than a month before the Chaos Region Alliance Conference. In a few days, he would have to set off. But before that, He planned to do something. Of course, what he was most concerned about was the reward of 200,000 two-star primordial stones from the Seven-Star Sword School. No matter what, he had to get these primordial stones. It should be the compensation for the mental damage caused by the Seven-Star Sword School. He thought as he walked through the forest. He could not think of a good solution for the time being. In addition, he was not in a hurry. It was better to wait for the Spirit-Devouring Emperor to finish his seclusion. During this period, it would be better to collect more information. The Seven-Star Sword School and the Gimdeo sect seemed to be joining forces. This is not good. On the second day, He received this piece of news, which made him feel uneasy. The 2 major forces were very powerful. If he encountered them alone, He could still deal with them. However, if a large number of Origin Emperors joined forces, even he would find it difficult to deal with them. He led a few people down a mountain. However, just as they reached the foot of the mountain, a figure suddenly flashed and ran in front of them with a whoosh. "Who is it?" The Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian reacted immediately and shouted. However, seeing that the newcomer did not make any further moves and did not emit any energy fluctuations, they did not immediately attack. Young man, the first time I saw you, I knew that you were a rare genius that only appears once in 100 years. I have seen countless people, but I have never seen someone like you. The person who had appeared was an old man who was half a century old. He looked at Su Yi with a look of admiration. The old man was thin and small, and his small eyes were shining. He came in front of Su Yi and said to him, "I won't hide it from you. I accidentally obtained a cultivation technique. It is fierce and extraordinary. It is rare in the world. It is definitely a good match for you. I guarantee that after you practice it, you will step into the Yuan Jun stage in 10 years and the Origin Emperor stage in 30 years. Since we can meet, it is fate. Why don't you?" After seeing Su Yi, the old man spoke excitedly. However, he was interrupted by Su Yi. "It's you again, you old liar." He came back to his senses and looked at the old man with a face full of bad luck. When he first entered Sword Star City, he also met this old man on the street. He also recommended a cultivation technique to him and wanted to sell it to him at a cheaper price. With Su Yi's shrewdness, how could he fall for this trick? "Master," the Green Emperor opened his mouth, wanting to say something. "Ignore him. Let's go." Su Yi's face darkened. He walked away without looking back. He did not want to talk nonsense with this old liar. This was the second time he had met the old man. Was his appearance so easy to fool? "Hey, young man, wait a moment. I haven't said how much it is. The price can be discussed." Seeing Su Yi and the others leave, the old man chased after them and shouted. When their figures disappeared into the forest and could no longer be seen, the old man's face revealed a look of regret. Wow, is it going to be barbecue meat? Not long after getting rid of the old man, Su Yi and the others were suddenly attacked by a demon true stage brute beast. However, this brute beast was directly crushed to death by the Green Emperor's finger. Su Xiaoshui crawled out of Su Yi's arms and said excitedly, "Let's go and find a place to barbecue meat." Su Yi was also happy. He found a secluded valley, set up a fire, and began to barbecue meat and make soup. The sky gradually darkened, and the light from the fire shone on Su Yi's face. He had the experience of barbecuing in his previous life. In addition to the many supplementary ingredients he had made with spiritual herbs, the barbecue meat and soup soon emitted a thick fragrance that whetted everyone's appetite. Su Xiaoshui's mouth was full of oil. With a skewer of barbecue meat in his left hand and a bowl of soup in his right, he took a bite and took a sip. He was indescribably happy. The Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian were not any better. They were all eating heartily. Su Yi felt that he should go back and do some research. He also needed to upgrade his equipment and come up with a few more ways to eat. Just when Su Yi and the others were eating happily, another voice suddenly rang in their ears. "Young man, I can see that you have a good physique and extraordinary talent. I accidentally came across a cultivation method. It is very domineering and rare in the world. It can definitely help you step into the primitive emperor realm within 30 years. Such a voice was very abrupt, but at the same time, it could not be more familiar. Su Yi and the others stopped eating at the same time and looked to the side in unison. Sure enough, at some point in time, that skinny old man in his 50s had appeared again. However, this time, the pair of bright little eyes were not looking at Su Yi with admiration. Instead, they were staring at the barbecue meat in Su Yi's hands. The old man swallowed hard and said with his eyes fixed, "It is fate that we can meet. Why don't you use your barbecue meat to exchange for my cultivation method?" After saying that, he took out a thread-bound book and waved it in front of Su Yi, but his eyes never left the barbecue meat. "No." Su Yi glanced at the old man and rejected directly. He was not stupid. With a glance, he knew that the thread-bound book was definitely not a cultivation method. He would be a fool to believe him. A barbecue meat in exchange for a cultivation method. How could there be such a good deal in the world? Gulp. The old man was not annoyed at all. His throat moved, and he swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva. His nose kept twitching as he smelled the aroma of the meat. It was obvious that he was very hungry. "Young man, you have to think carefully. You can't miss this opportunity. This old man's cultivation method is rare in the world. Using it to exchange for your barbecue meat is definitely a bargain for you," the old man said solemnly. "You old liar, are you following me? Why do I meet you everywhere I go?" He was dissatisfied and rolled his eyes at the old man. He felt helpless. This was the third time he met this old liar. Did he, have a face that is easy to deceive? Suddenly, the old man was stunned and asked in confusion, "Young man, this is the first time we met. How can you say that I am following you?" This also surprised Su-yi, the Green Emperor, the Inyan Ghost Emperor, and Handsome Su for a moment. They had met in the afternoon. It had only been a few hours. How could this old liar not remember them? Is he not only an old liar, but also a little delirious? Su-yi frowned and thought. Chapter 1004. Judging from the old man's behavior, Su-yi had to be suspicious. They had just met in the afternoon, but the old liar said that he didn't know him after only 4 hours. "Master, this old man is not ordinary." The Green Emperor approached Su-yi and whispered. As he spoke, he fixed his eyes on the old man. His chi was about to explode, as if he was facing some danger. He was extremely cautious. "He is indeed not ordinary." Su-yi nodded slightly, agreeing with the Green Emperor's words. The old man suddenly appeared in front of them, but Su-yi and the others didn't notice him in advance. There were 3 Emperor Realm experts present, and one of them was Handsome Su, who was comparable to an Emperor Realm expert. Su-yi was the weakest among them, but he was still at the original Void Realm. So many powerful experts didn't notice the old liar's approach in advance, which showed that he was not ordinary at all. Either the old man had a very clever way of hiding his chi, or his cultivation was far more profound than those present. No matter which possibility it was, it meant that this person was extraordinary. "Master, we'd better be careful." The Inyan Ghost Emperor also came to Su-yi's side and whispered to him. The old man shouldn't be a threat to Su-yi and the others now. After all, he was a little delirious. However, he might expose Su-yi and the others. If that was the case, the loss would outweigh the gain. "Old man, you can have this barbecue. We'll leave first." Su-yi didn't want to be entangled with the old man. He took some barbecue meat and handed it to the old man. He even left half a pot of meat soup for him. Then, he left with the Green Emperor, the Inyan Ghost Emperor, Huang Jian, and Handsome Su. "We agreed to exchange the cultivation method for the barbecue meat. Take this." Before Su-yi left, the old man stuffed the thread-bound book into his hands. Then, ignoring Su-yi and the others, he held the barbecued meat in one hand and the pot in the other and began to eat the meat and drink the soup. From time to time, he would let out a few exclamations of admiration. "What kind of cultivation technique is that? It's just a lousy book that can't even be used to wipe your ass." After Su-yi walked far away, he looked at the book in his hand and smiled bitterly. Just as he had observed earlier, this was just an ordinary paper book. There was only a piece of history written in it, and there was no cultivation technique at all. Who knew where such an old swindler came from? He felt very mysterious. But now that he had gotten rid of it, he hoped that he would not encounter it again in the future. At night, Su-yi and the others found a cave to rest for the night. Su-yi entered the mysterious space to check on the devouring Spirit Emperor. It was in the midst of a breakthrough, and it would probably take a few days for it to finish. "You all stay in the space first. I'll take a walk outside. After the devouring Spirit Emperor breaks through, we'll go and do something big together." After dawn, Su-yi placed the Green Emperor, the Inyan Ghost Emperor, and Huang Jian in the mysterious space. Handsome Su made a fuss and wanted to come out, but was stopped by Su-yi. If he was alone outside, he would not be exposed with his disguise skill. But with Handsome Su by his side, it was hard to say. "Have you heard that there's another primordial stone mineral deposit nearby?" When He was walking in the forest, he inadvertently heard some rogue cultivators talking about it. I heard about it too. It said that it's in the territory of the Seven-Star Sword School, southwest of the Sword Star City. No, this mineral deposit is not new. It has been discovered by the Seven-Star Sword School a long time ago and is ready to mine it. However, they've been keeping this news under wraps until recently. Next to him, someone added, not far away. He pricked up his ears and listened carefully to all this. With his current strength, he could look down on most cultivators. As long as he did not encounter those of the older generation, He was basically fearless. In addition, his method of concealing his aura was extremely clever, so even if they were not far away, the rogue cultivators who were discussing did not realize that their words had been heard by others. I see. It's normal for a primordial stone mineral deposit to be tightly hidden, but I didn't expect it to be found out in the end. The rogue cultivator at the beginning said again. It's useless to know. The Seven-Star Sword School is one of the 5 strongest forces in the area. Since the primordial stone mineral deposit has been in their hands in advance, it's almost impossible for others to get a share of it. Next to him, another rogue cultivator took over the conversation and said, the 5 strongest sects in the area were Xinjian Sect, Qingming Sect, Liu Sect, Seven-Star Sword School, and Gimdeo Sect. If others wanted to fight for the primordial stone mineral deposit, they would have to join forces with other forces to gain an advantage. But even if they succeeded in obtaining the mineral deposit in the end, they would definitely lose a layer of skin, and in the end, others would benefit. I don't know if the mineral deposit is big or not. If it's rich enough, then the Seven-Star Sword School can be considered to have made a windfall. There were some who sighed incomparably, carrying expressions of envy. Southwest of Sword Star City, he heard these words and began to think about some things in his heart. It turned out that the Seven-Star Sword School had found another primordial stone mineral deposit. They were really lucky. Previously, he thought that a third-rate force, the Seven-Star Sword School, had put out a bounty of 200,000 2-star primordial stones for his whereabouts. But now, it seemed that with this primordial stone mineral deposit, the 200,000 2-star primordial stones might not be a huge number to them. Primordial stones. Oh, primordial stones. Your grandpa is here. Suddenly, Yi's eyes shone brightly as he greedily licked his lips. He no longer eavesdropped on the discussion of the rogue cultivators. Instead, he turned around and left, heading in the direction of Sword Star City. When he first heard that the Seven-Star Sword School had placed a bounty on him, he had been thinking about how to get the 200,000 2-star primordial stones. However, after thinking hard for a long time, he still couldn't come up with a good plan. After all, it was the Seven-Star Sword School. There were many experts in it. Once they saw through his identity, he would really die. But now it was different. The appearance of a primordial stone mineral deposit gave him hope. The origin stones that had been mined had to be placed in the spatial pouch, so it wasn't easy for to swindle them from the hands of others. But the origin stones that hadn't been mined were things that the members of the Seven-Star Sword Sect couldn't take away. I'm rich. I'm going to be rich. He suddenly felt inexplicably excited and happily headed in the direction that the rogue cultivators had mentioned. The relationship between him and the Seven-Star Sword Sect could already be considered to be like fire and water, and the Seven-Star Sword Sect would absolutely not let him off. So, he felt that if he was able to trick the Seven-Star Sword Sect, then it would absolutely be a matter of great satisfaction. He was already very familiar with the direction of Sword Star City. This time, it would not be too difficult to find the primordial stone mineral deposit. There would definitely be some traces along the way for him to catch. It's best if I can find a way to sneak in and snatch some. After all, I still have to live. He had some ideas in his heart, but he wanted to be able to get some primordial stones to repay the huge debt of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. After all, the mineral deposit that Nangon Mingyue had mentioned was still an unknown. Therefore, he was still extremely short of money. Along the way, he did not walk very fast. He spent more than a day and finally arrived at a mountain range. and it was here that he found some people patrolling back and forth in the vicinity. Looking at the attire of these people, they were the disciples of the Seven-Star Sword School. It must be here. Looking at these people, Su-Yi guessed that the primordial stone mineral deposit was probably in the depths of the mountain range. The disciples patrolling the periphery were not very strong, and there were even many in the origin spirit realm. These people could not threaten Su-Yi, but the deeper he went, the stronger the people he would encounter would be. I don't know how many true powerhouses are overseeing this place. Su-Yi knitted his brows and began to calculate in his heart. The Seven-Star Sword School definitely valued a primordial stone mineral deposit very much. There would certainly be many Emperor Stage powerhouses. It would definitely not be easy to sneak in without anyone noticing. If a fight broke out, it would be extremely troublesome when the time came. What should I do? Su-Yi hid in a concealed treetop, scratching his chin and constantly pondering. He thought of the time when he was in the barbaric demon forest and was captured by the Black Fiend sect as a slave to mine primordial stones. He also did not know if the Seven-Star Sword School had the habit of capturing slaves. If they did, Su-Yi felt that he could sell himself as a slave as long as he could enter the mine. No. If I cause a ruckus like this, the primordial stone's mind will definitely be put into a space bag. That would be a huge loss. Su-Yi immediately rejected this idea and suddenly bitterly lamented. He did not want to waste too much time. Taking primordial stones from the mine was much easier than robbing an Emperor Stage powerhouse's space bag. Every primordial stone that was put into the space bag was a loss to Su-Yi. It would be painful. Su-Yi scratched his head. After a while, his eyes suddenly lit up. He slapped his head and said, "I've got it." Then he floated down from the treetop and looked around for a while. He found a hidden place and called Su Xiaoshui, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian out of the mysterious space. Then Su-Yi's face changed. He removed the disguise and returned to his original appearance. "Boss, what are you going to do?" Su Xiaoshui was excited when he was released. When he saw the smirk on Su-Yi's face, he knew that he must be up to something. Su-Yi smiled mysteriously and then began to whisper to the others. Not long after, the eyes of the few Emperor Stage experts lit up as well. They all let out chuckles as a treacherous aura filled the air. Chapter 1005. Boss, you're full of bad ideas. Handsome Su glanced at Su-Yi, rolled his eyes, and curled his lips. How can you talk to your boss like that? Seeing handsome Su's disdainful look, Su-Yi couldn't help but smack him on the head. "Boss, you hit me again." Annoyed, handsome Su rubbed his head with one wing and glared at Su-Yi. "Stop wasting time. Let's stick to the plan." Su-Yi glanced at him and said to the others. After the Green Emperor, Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian nodded, they all flew out of the cave. Hiding their presence to the extreme, they slowly crept into the primordial stone mountain. The disciples of the Seven-Star Sword School, whose cultivation wasn't high enough, didn't notice them at all. "I'm done here. You guys keep going. Remember, don't expose yourselves later." When they reached a certain depth, Su-Yi said to the people around him, "Okay, Master, be careful." Green Emperor, Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian nodded and continued to sneak forward. "Boss, is this really going to work?" Worried, handsome Su asked, "Isn't it a little too dangerous?" "It's definitely dangerous, but it shouldn't be a big problem." Su-Yi nodded and said, "Let's bet on it this time. If we succeed, I guarantee that the Seven-Star Sword School will be heartbroken." Su-Yi and handsome Su continued to hide. After a while, the Green Emperor and the others probably went deeper. Su-Yi calculated and felt that it was about time. "Let's go." He stepped out, no longer hiding. Handsome Su also flew into the air and circled above Su-Yi's head. The man and bird started to head towards the depths of the mountain range in such a brazen manner. It was even to the extent that Su-Yi intentionally approached the direction that had Seven-Star Sword Sect disciples patrolling, as if he was deeply afraid that others wouldn't be able to see him. Sure enough, not long after, a team of 5 discovered Su-Yi and handsome Su. Who dares to trespass into the 7-star sword school's restricted area? Leave immediately, or we'll kill you on the spot. The leader of the 5 people was a young man of about 30 years old. When he saw the unfamiliar young man, he immediately shouted. He could tell that the man was only at the first heavenly layer of Yuanjun stage. It was not bad, but it was definitely not outstanding. The 7-star sword school? He seemed to be stunned and asked, "So you guys are from the 7-star sword school? Then don't blame me." As he spoke, he retrieved a big saber from his interspatial bag and held in his hand. Then he charged toward the team of 5. As he advanced, a majestic aura fluctuated from his body, carrying with it a biting, cold, murderous intent. It brazenly swept towards the 5 people in front of him. "Kid, you're asking for it." The leader of the 5 shouted coldly, his hand already grasping the hilt of his sword. The sword in his hand was not out of its scabbard, but the sword was already humming and vibrating nonstop. Facing Su Yi's attack, the young man suddenly pulled out his sword and swung it back. However, Su Yi's broadsword slashed down and instantly cut through his attack, as if it was breaking a twig. Bang! In the end, Su Yi's broadsword slashed the young man's chest, almost cutting him in half. After the young man fell to the ground, blood gushed out, and he couldn't be more dead. "Senior brother." The other 4 people cried out loudly, their faces filled with shock. Their senior brother was killed by the young man in front of them without being able to take a single hit. This made them feel shocked. "Let's go together and kill him," one of the 4 people called out. Immediately, the remaining people raised their swords and charged at Su Yi, a bunch of useless chickens and pottery dogs. "You're asking for it." Su Yi snorted coldly and went up with his broadsword, fighting with the 4 people. He did not show his full strength. Instead, he held back and fought with the 4 people for a while. However, Su Yi did not hold back. The 4 disciples of the 7-star sword school were quickly injured by him, but it seemed that he could not kill them in a short time. Of course, Su Yi was not unable to kill these people. With his strength, one hit was enough to kill several people present. He just wanted to make a big commotion here and attract more people. What happened? Who dares to be so presumptuous here? As expected, a voice was heard quickly approaching. It was the disciples of the 7-star sword school. "There's more than one team." He observed for a while. There were 2 teams nearby that were attracted by the situation here. There were a total of 10 people. Seeing this, the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up into a smile. "How dare you be so arrogant in the territory of the 7-star sword school? I have to admire your guts." A disciple of the 7-star sword school snorted and joined the battle, wanting to kill Su Yi. "We should be the ones admiring your guts. You don't even know me and my boss, and you dare to come to your deaths." At this moment, handsome Su, who was circling in the air, responded. As soon as he spoke, the disciples of the 7-star sword school below were stunned and stared at him. A talking bird? Demon illusionary realm? They immediately felt fear from the depths of their hearts. No one expected that there would be a little bird of the demon illusionary realm in the sky. They looked so familiar. Suddenly, another disciple of the 7-star sword school frowned and then slapped his thigh. "I remember. It's them. It's them. They killed the young sect master and guardian Lu." This disciple of the 7-star sword school quickly saw the appearances of Su Yi and handsome Su clearly, and he noticed that this man and bird were precisely the 2 people that were wanted by the sect now. When he thought of what this man and bird had done, it caused him to instantly be horrified to the point he was on the verge of wetting his pants. Up until now, there were probably not many people in the vicinity that didn't know of the deeds of Su Yi and handsome Su in Sword Star City. Chopping off the head of the Heaven Splitter Tiger with a single strike and killing the 7-star sword school's young sect master, Ran Yin, with a single strike was all done by that young man. That little bird was even more terrifying. The vice city governor of Sword Star City, the 7-star sword school's guardian Lu, had a cultivation at the 8th level of the Origin Void stage, yet he was slapped to death by a single wing of that little bird. If it wasn't for many people seeing it with their own 2 eyes, there probably wouldn't be many people that would believe it. It's them. It's really them. The other disciples of the seven-star sword school were terrified. The ferocious reputation of this man and bird caused them to be astounded to the extreme, and they instantly cried out loudly as if they'd seen a ghost. Making such a big fuss. Do you want to use this method to draw over your experts? Handsome Sue grunted, and his figure was still circling in midair, yet his wings flapped out an expanse of terrifying strong winds that sliced the person that cried out loudly into a pile of pieces, instantly killing him. Yet his words seemed to have utterly not frightened these disciples of the seven-star sword school. The 10+ people seemed as if they'd awoken from a dream, and they said loudly, "Quickly notify the elders, quickly!" At the same time that they shouted loudly, a disciple in the lead withdrew something from his pocket, and after he poured his origin energy into it, a flowing light instantly shot into the sky, and it carried along a sharp howl as it tore through the sky and resounded out in an area of tens of kilometers. After this flowing light charged to the peak, it emitted an enormous explosion that drew the attention of many people in the surroundings. It's the signal of an enemy attack from the seven-star sword school. Someone's intruding. Quickly go and stop him. Who's so bold as to trespass into our sex mine? Let's go and see who's so arrogant. Soon, there was a huge commotion deep within the mountain range. Many experts swept over, and some even directly leaped into the sky and walked on air at an extremely fast speed. The sect master has already started. Let's be careful and hide. Deep within the mountain range, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian were hiding in a secluded valley. Sensing some extraordinary auras passing by not far away, they restrained their auras and did not leak out at all. There's only one Origin Emperor among the people who just passed by. There's definitely someone who hasn't come out yet. Let's not rush. Let's wait until most of them have left before going in," said the Green Emperor. Hearing this, the other two nodded silently, indicating that they understood. Then, the three of them continued to hide and stop talking, but at the same time, they carefully observed the movements of some experts. Near the periphery of the mountain range, Su Yi and Su Xiaoshui looked at each other and laughed when they saw the signal from the seven-star sword school's disciples. It was as if their evil plan had succeeded. This was the result that Su Yi wanted. He wanted to alarm the true experts of the seven-star sword school. Not only that, it was best to attract all the Origin Emperors. Kill. After the effect was achieved, Su Yi swung the long saber in his hand and killed several people in succession. "We can't fight them head-on. Retreat, retreat quickly." Among the remaining disciples of the seven-star sword school, someone shouted. Even if Su Yi had concealed his strength, he was still too strong for these ordinary disciples. They were no match for him at all. If they continued to fight, they would only be courting death. "Do you think you can escape? How dare you expose my whereabouts? I'll kill all of you here first." Su Yi let out a thunderous roar, his voice shaking the void. He dragged the saber with one hand and chased after those disciples. With a slash of his saber, a resplendent saber light was emitted and immediately cut two people in half. "Run. Split up and run." The remaining 7 disciples of the seven-star sword school scattered like stray dogs and ran in different directions. That young man was too strong. If they didn't split up and run, they would all die. "None of you can escape," Su Yi said coldly. After sensing with his soul power, he chose a disciple and chased after him. In the direction he chose, there were Origin Void Realm experts rushing over. This was a direction he had specially chosen. Who dares to kill the disciples of the seven-star sword school here? In the distant sky, an angry roar was heard. The voice was rapidly approaching from afar. "Elder, save me." The disciple who was being chased by Su Yi shouted in panic and wailed, "Elder, kill this man. He is the one who killed the young sect master." Chapter 1006. The seven-star sword school's disciple was already in despair. The elder was still far away, so it was probably impossible for him to save him. Soon after, a poochie sound came from behind him. Subsequently, the disciple felt the strength in his entire body drain away. Intense pain assaulted him, and his body instantly went limp. In the next instant, he completely lost consciousness. Little Handsome, it's up to you now. After finishing off the disciple with a single slash, Su raised his head and spoke to Little Handsome, Su, who was flying in the sky above him. Don't worry, boss. It's as easy as flipping my hand to deal with these small fries. Little Handsome, Su nodded and spoke indifferently. Their gazes looked ahead. There were many auras that were swiftly flying over. The one closest to them was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. His feet stepped on the sky, and his speed was extremely fast. He was able to sense that this person's cultivation was around the 7th level of the Origin Void stage, and it was extremely extraordinary. It was only a level lower than Guardian Lu from that day, and, presumably, this person was more or less a guardian in the 7-Star Sword sect. Little bastard, how dare you kill my 7-Star Sword School's disciple? How dare you? The middle-aged man instantly charged before them. The long sword in his hand had a flowing light that spread out like ripples. This invisible force trapped Su, and Little Handsome Su within it. The middle-aged man glared at Su, and Little Handsome Su as if he was looking at dead people. Be careful, Guardian Tao. They're the ones who killed the young sect leader and Guardian Lu. Just as the middle-aged man was about to attack and kill the man and the bird, a loud shout suddenly sounded from below. It was the 7-Star Sword School's disciples who had scattered and fled. What? When he heard this warning, the middle-aged man who was called Guardian Tao was suddenly shocked. A wave of cold air instantly rushed from the bottom of his feet to his head. It was as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and all the bones in his body instantly went limp. A strong sense of fear arose in his heart. He was so shocked that he wanted to die. Who in the 7-Star Sword School didn't know about the death of the young sect master, Protector Lu, and the sect master's heaven-splitting tiger? Those murderers were two ferocious fellows, and the little bird amongst them was even more terrifying. With a single flap of its wings, it killed Guardian Lu, who was at the 8th level of the Origin Void stage, and it was obvious how formidable it was. The experts of the sect were furious. They issued a huge bounty just to obtain information about the whereabouts of that person and bird. They were extremely clearly aware that only Origin Emperor Realm experts would have the chance to capture or kill the two murderers. At this moment, Guardian Tao was only at the 7th level of the Origin Void stage and was slightly weaker than Guardian Lu. What difference was it from courting death if he went against this man and bird? Retreat. Protector Tao didn't even think about it. He stepped repeatedly in the void and forcibly stopped his forward momentum. In an instant, he turned around and fled in the direction he came from. You want to run? Do you think you can run? Since you're here, I'll deal with you first. Handsome Su snorted and chased after Protector Tao. Even though Handsome Su spoke like this, he didn't utilize his extreme speed and only followed behind Protector Tao. Right when the man and bird had charged out for a short distance, an explosive shout sounded out from another direction. Trespassing into the restricted area of my 7-Star Sword School, you're simply courting death. This voice contained dense origin energy mixed within, and it was like the rumbling of heavenly thunder that caused this expanse of the mountain range and space to tremble intensely. This voice hadn't finished resounding out when a thin old man's figure was seen dashing over from afar. His speed was exceedingly swift, and he was countless times swifter than Handsome Su and Protector Tao at this moment. Elder, quickly save me. The young sect master died at their hands. Protector Tao instantly seemed as if he'd seen his savior, and he instantly cried out loudly as he passed on the information he'd just obtained from his disciple. When they heard these words, a wisp of a smile hung on the corners of Su, who'd already arrived in midair, and Handsome Su, who was chasing after Protector Tao. Not only your young sect master, but also some protector. Today, you're also going to die at my hands. Handsome Su snickered and suddenly flapped his wings. Whoosh! A blazing flame suddenly rushed out from between those seemingly ordinary wings. It was as if the flames of the 9th heaven had arrived swiftly and violently, and it carried a terrifyingly high temperature as it instantly enveloped Protector Tao's body. Ah! A blood-curdling scream rang out. Just as the thin old man was about to save him, he directly fell into a death trap again. In just the span of 2 breaths, Protector Tao's howl disappeared without a trace. In midair, the flame was extinguished, and only pitch-black ashes appeared and scattered with the wind. "Little bastard, how dare you!" The thin old man roared angrily and had already arrived beside Handsome Sue. He slapped out with a withered palm, and a gust of wind rose in all directions, darkening the sky and earth. Handsome Sue hurriedly raised his wings and shot out another flame that collided with this gust of wind. The collision of energy between the two surged, and boundless violent energy surged. Using this energy, Handsome Sue directly retreated to Su Yi's side, and that old man was also directly blocked, and his figure paused. An Origin Emperor powerhouse can't be defeated by force. Run. Looking at the old man's silhouette, Su Yi let out a strange cry. Then he dragged little Handsome Sue and ran without looking back. "You really killed the young sect master, Protector Lu, and the sect master's mount. Today, you actually broke into the mine of the 7-star sword school. How dare you? Today, this old man will tear you into pieces." Seeing Su Yi and Handsome Sue turn and flee, the old man flew after them and shouted at the back. He was at the 2nd level of the Origin Emperor realm. Seeing the man and the bird flee, the old man thought that they were really afraid of him. This old man is really arrogant. Seeing that the old man chased after them alone, Su Yi muttered with a somewhat dissatisfied look. "It's best to lure out all the Origin Emperors so that we can take action easily." Handsome Sue also muttered to himself, somewhat speechless at the Origin Emperor old man who chased after them. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to attract more Origin Emperors, Su Xiaoshui was confident that he could kill that old man. But now, they didn't achieve their goal at all, which made Su Yi and Handsome Sue extremely unhappy. "Damn you! Hurry up and call for more people. I'm waiting to be hunted down by you." Su Yi cursed in his heart and couldn't wait to tell that old man his thoughts. "Little bastards, you can't escape death even if you go to heaven or hell today." But the old man chased after them, and at the same time, he shouted at Su Yi and Handsome Sue from time to time. He sneered in his heart, thinking that the man and the bird were already afraid. But he didn't expect that, just as he finished speaking, the little bird in front of him suddenly paused, and with a flap of its wings, it shot out a terrifying flame. The raging flames spread out in the void and burned fiercely, causing the void to distort a little from the heat. The old man was caught off guard and almost rushed into the flame. Even though he managed to stop himself in time, he still felt that his soul was being roasted by the raging flame, and his face that was illuminated by the flame instantly showed traces of charred flesh. "Boss, this old man is chasing us. I'll kill him first." Su Xiaoshui yelled and was about to charge at the old man with a furious look on his face. And after he finished speaking, the terrifying raging flame swept out again, spitting out tongues of fire, wanting to devour the Origin Emperor old man. Such a scene made the old man turn pale with fright. He never thought that the little bird's strength would be so strong, and when it attacked, he actually smelled a little bit of the aura of death. It wasn't difficult to imagine that if he were to continue fighting the little bird for a long time, then he might end up dying in the end. At this moment, the old man clearly realized that he was too arrogant, and he shouldn't have looked down on this man and bird. After all, the little bird was an existence that was capable of slapping an 8th-level Origin Void Stage expert to death with a single slap. So how could the little bird be simple? We can't care about him. Once this old fellow notifies even more Origin Emperor Stage experts, we'll have to bear the consequences. Even if we have people outside to receive us, it'll still be extremely troublesome. Just as little Handsome Sue was about to charge out, Su Yi pulled him back and dragged him along as they continued their escape. As he watched them flee swiftly, the Origin Emperor Stage old man from the 7-star sword school didn't dare rashly chase after them this time, as the strength revealed by the little bird was too terrifying. Moreover, Based on the conversation between the man and bird, it seemed that they didn't take him seriously at all, and they were only fleeing for their lives and weren't willing to waste time here. Besides that, the old man also captured another piece of information, and that was that the man and bird had companions. This was exactly the same as the recent rumors, and it seemed that the members of the Gimdeo sect were at a disadvantage like this. When he thought up to here, how could the old man have the courage to continue chasing by himself? Immediately, he let out a long whistle that pierced through the sky and spread out in all directions. After he finished, he continued to chase after Su, Yi, and handsome Su with all his might. The man and bird's speed was extremely swift, and it was difficult for him to catch up for a time. This old geezer finally did something right. Hearing the long whistle behind him, a treacherous smile appeared on Su Yi's face, and handsome Su, who was beside him, chuckled endlessly as well. Not long after, the man and bird heard a few powerful auras soar into the sky from the depths of the mountain range in the distance, and they were heading towards their direction. Su Yi spoke and warned handsome Su, who was beside him, "Be careful, there's probably a high-level origin Emperor stage expert among those people. We have to run faster if we notice that something isn't right." "Don't worry, boss, I know what to do." Handsome Su nodded and said seriously. They were playing a big game this time. Several Origin Emperor Realm cultivators were chasing after them. If they were blocked, the man and the bird would have to give up their lives here. After all, they didn't even have an Emperor stage expert with them now. Chapter 1007. However, Su Yi had a certain degree of confidence. His plan wasn't that simple. As long as he could escape smoothly and avoid being surrounded by the Origin Emperors, everything would be fine. Behind him, the second-level Origin Emperor 7-star Sword School Elder had joined up with the other four figures. The four people who had just arrived were all Origin Emperors. They looked to be between 50 and 70 years old. One of them was at the third-level Origin Emperor realm, two were at the fourth-level Origin Emperor realm, and the last one was a gray-haired old man who looked to be in his 60s. He was at the sixth-level Origin Emperor realm. The combined strength of these 5 Origin Emperor realm experts was already powerful enough. They're the murderers who killed the young sect master, Protector Lu, and sky-splitting tiger Ayuka. These two little bastards are really arrogant. How dare they trespass into the territory of the 7-star Sword School? They don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They are courting death. This time, we can't let them escape. Chase after them, life or death. After knowing that the two people who had escaped were the murderers of the young sect master and Protector Lu, the 4 people who had rushed over were filled with murderous intent. Then, under the instructions of the gray-haired old man, everyone unleashed all their strength and chased after Su Yi and handsome Su. "Let's go quickly." Sensing the situation behind him, Su Yi kept urging handsome Su to escape. Although he was very nervous, he was still extremely excited. The development of the current situation was as he had expected. This made Su Yi very happy. In his plan, he would definitely be hunted down by the 7-star Sword School when he appeared in the territory of the 7-star Sword School. Therefore, Su Yi could attract the Origin Emperors away and create opportunities for the Green Emperor, Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian. Therefore, the following period of time would depend on the 3 of them. On the other side, the Green Emperor, Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian were hiding in the valley. Their auras were concealed to the extreme. As expected, another 4 Origin Emperors have appeared. The Green Emperor's eyes lit up when he saw the 4 men chasing after Su Yi and handsome Su. There might be some Origin Emperors inside, but there shouldn't be too many of them. With the strength of the 3 of us, we should be able to handle it. The Yin-Yang Underworld Monarch added from the side. 5 Origin Emperors had left consecutively. This was an extremely powerful force. Furthermore, one of them was at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm. It would be rather troublesome for the 3 of them to deal with them. Even if there were other Origin Emperors from the 7-star Sword School in the mine, there wouldn't be too many of them. Let's go and find a mine first. Huang Jian called out. Then, together with the Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, they began to sneak through the forest between the mountains. The three of them were extremely fast, running through the forest as if they were running on flat ground, heading towards the depths of the mountain range. Along the way, they encountered many patrolling disciples from the Seven-Star Sword School. However, they avoided them one by one. In the end, the three of them appeared in front of a hill that didn't look particularly majestic. This is the place. The Green Emperor looked around and saw that there were many winding paths on the hill. They must have been formed by many people walking around. Moreover, on the hill, there was a figure guarding every half a mile. Everyone's aura was vigorous, and their cultivation was above the Yuanzhen realm. It was quite impressive. In addition, there were some Origin Void realm experts patrolling back and forth. The security was tight. "Let's go," the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead called out, and the three of them set off again. It wasn't particularly difficult for them to avoid the guards. Therefore, after a while, they directly climbed up the hill. This Origin Stone mine is not small. It's much bigger than it looks from the outside. After climbing over the hill, the three of them quickly saw a scene that shocked them. On the hill, there were many huge mines. They were deep and dark, as if they were the mouths of demon kings that could devour people. Many figures were busy working. Their clothes were ragged and they looked tired. At first glance, one could tell that they were slaves. Many disciples from the Seven-Star Sword School were holding long swords and shouting at the slaves. What shocked the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian was that the scale of the mine was much larger than they had imagined. It seemed that there was a lot of mineral reserves. Almost the entire hill was being mined. The primordial stones that have been mined must have been directly collected, either carried by someone or placed in a safe place. Huang Jian's eyes were shining as he kept looking around. The origin stones that had been mined through hard work were usually put directly into a space bag and handed over to someone with a powerful cultivation for safekeeping. Or, the Seven-Star Sword School could have set up a restricted area to store the origin stones. However, this possibility was very small. There are indeed two Origin Emperors guarding this place. The Seven-Star Sword School's strength is indeed not weak. It's worthy of being close to a second-rate force. The Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead said as his eyes flickered. In his perception, there was a cave entrance on the hill. There were two powerful auras in it. If there are only two people, it will be easier to deal with them. Third-level Origin Emperor, and the other is sixth-level Origin Emperor. We can take one each and deal with them quickly. The Green Emperor nodded. Everything was within his perception. The two Origin Emperors guarding this place. One was third-level Origin Emperor, and the other was fifth-level Origin Emperor. They were very powerful. Let's just kill them. I hope the Origin Stones are with the sixth-level Origin Emperor. The Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead said, softly with a strong, murderous intent. Leave the other Origin Void Realm to me. Huang Jian said. Then, the three of them exchanged a look and directly leaped up, instantly shooting toward the cave entrance. Who's there? In the end, such actions were unable to escape the prying eyes of the guards. Immediately, someone shouted out loudly, "What are you doing?" However, the Green Emperor and the other two did not care about them at all. Like a bolt of lightning, they dashed into the cave. Immediately after, a furious roar was heard from the cave. At the same time, there was an uncontrollable panic in the voice. Soon, a fierce battle broke out. Terrifying energy surged and shattered the cave into pieces. Several figures rushed out from the cave. The Green Emperor directly clashed with the sixth-level Origin Emperor expert. Both of them were engaged in a terrifying battle. Resplendent rays of light were shot out from their hands, carrying with them unparalleled energy and terrifying destructive power. However, it was obvious that the Azure Emperor was suppressing the sixth-level Origin Monarch powerhouse at the moment. The sixth-level Origin Emperor's cultivation was still inferior to the fifth-level Demon Emperor's cultivation. However, it would be difficult for the Green Emperor to kill the old man in a short period of time. However, on the other side, it was a completely different scene. The Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead was surrounded by black and white light, which streaked across the sky like a waterfall. A majestic palm print shot out from his hand and struck the chest of an old man in his 50s. Poof! The old man's body flew out like a kite with a broken string. Blood spurted out from his mouth, leaving a line in the void. The Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead quickly chased after the old man and hit him with his palm again. His terrifying strength exploded. Ferocious energy swept out and turned the old man's body into a cloud of blood mist. The Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead did not even look at the old man. He turned around and attacked the 5th-level Origin Emperor with the Green Emperor. Apart from them, Huang Jian was also fighting with a group of people. However, these people were all in the Origin Void Realm. With Huang Jian's Origin Emperor Realm cultivation, he was like a tiger in a flock of sheep. He was absolutely crushing them. One by one, they were sent flying and vomiting blood. They were severely injured. This scene was witnessed by the disciples of the 7-Star Sword School. Someone has broken into the mine of the 7-Star Sword School. They are so strong. The other elders seem to have gone out to chase after someone. Only 2 elders are here. I'm afraid this is going to be a big mess. Elder Lu has been killed. This is bad. The 2 of them are too strong. I'm afraid Elder Nya will not be able to handle them alone. This wasn't a particularly vast hill, but it was filled with people. Many people looked at this scene with shock, and their eyes were filled with astonishment. The strength of the Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead made these people feel hopeless. Elder Lu, who was at the 3rd-level Origin Emperor realm, was killed in a few moves. Only Elder Nya, who was at the 6th-level Origin Emperor realm, was left. However, judging from the current situation, he was afraid that he would not be able to hold on. The disciples of the 7-Star Sword School were extremely worried. If Elder Nya was also killed, would this mine still belong to the 7-Star Sword School? Now that the matter had come to this, no matter how stupid a person was, they would be able to realize that the few elders of their 7-Star Sword sect from before had probably fallen for the trick of luring the tiger away from mountain. Quickly send the news back to the sect and inform the elders who left earlier. Otherwise, something big will happen here today. Some of the disciples of the 7-Star Sword School who still had some sense in them spoke out. At his reminder, several people took out communication devices from their arms. After injecting their origin chi, they soared into the sky and released a huge commotion. It's too late to react now. Old man, you can only blame yourself for being a disciple of the 7-Star Sword School. Therefore, I have no choice but to kill you today. The Green Emperor sneered and threw out a punch. It was like a dragon coming out of its cave. It was accompanied by a terrifying roar that made people's hair stand on end. When such a blow hit the chest of the 6th-level Origin Emperor Realm Elder, his body was directly thrown into the air and fell heavily on the hill. Go to hell, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead said coldly and instantly caught up with the Elder. A vigorous force shuttled through his body and finally gathered in his palm. Then he slapped the Elder's head. Bang! The Elder's head exploded, and red and white matter splattered everywhere. Chapter 1008. Elder Lu is dead. Elder Nya is dead too. The strength of those 2 people is so terrifying. It's really too terrifying. We can't hold this place anymore. Run. After a short silence, the people of the 7-Star Sword School came to their senses one by one. The disciples panicked and ran down the hill, scattering like birds and beasts. The strength of the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian was too terrifying. Even the 2 Origin Emperor Realm Elders were no match for them. If they stayed here, they would die. For a moment, the hill was in chaos. The mining slaves also ran down the hill quickly. They knew that this was a God-given opportunity to escape. If they did not escape now, they would not be able to escape later. The Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian did not care. The 7-Star Sword School disciples and slaves could not affect the overall situation. They did not intend to take over the mine, so there was no point in keeping those people alive. Interspatial bag. The Green Emperor found a few spatial bags on the body of the old man at the 6th level of the Origin Monarch realm and kept them without even looking at them. The interspatial bag of the third-level Origin Emperor Realm Elder had also fallen into the hands of the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead. Let's search again. Take everything that is useful. Maybe there are origin stones that have been mined, but have not been collected yet. The Green Emperor looked around and observed. Then, the three silhouettes leaped into the air again and began to search the mine. On the other hand, Su, Yi, and Handsome Su were running away quickly. They did not dare to slow down. After all, there was a sixth-level Origin Emperor chasing after them. It was not a joke. Even though Handsome Su tried his best, he could feel that the person chasing after them was getting closer and closer. His current cultivation level was still too low. Quick, act according to the plan. Su, he said to Handsome Su while they were running away. Su Xiaoshui took the hint and landed in a dense forest. Under the cover of the trees, they quickly moved away. When they passed by a small mountain, Su Yi and Su Xiaoshui disappeared into a cave. Quick! Su Yi hurriedly summoned the mysterious dimension and entered it with Handsome Su. Master! After they entered the mysterious space, a voice sounded in Su Yi's ears. He looked over and saw that the devouring spirit emperor had already woken up. He was looking at Su Yi with excitement and gratitude in his eyes. You succeeded. Seeing this, Su Yi was overjoyed, but he hurriedly said, There's no time to explain. We'll go out together later. Just don't talk too much. After saying that, Su Yi immediately began to use his disguise technique. Soon, his appearance underwent a huge change. He turned from a 16 or 17-year-old boy to a 30-year-old man. Not only that, but the aura on his body had also changed. It was completely different from before. Su Yi took out a different set of clothes from the dimensional bag and changed out of his original clothes. Then, he pulled the devouring spirit emperor out of the mysterious dimension. What are you doing? The devouring spirit emperor was a little confused. He had no idea what Su Yi was doing. When he saw Su Yi using the disguise technique, he was also shocked. However, seeing Su Yi's anxious look, the devouring spirit emperor naturally did not ask any more questions. Since he had recognized Su Yi as his master and received unimaginable benefits from him, he was willing to do things for Su Yi. There's no time to talk. Start chasing me now. When you meet the people from the 7-Star Sword School, put on airs like before, but don't expose my identity and point them away. Su Yi instructed and quickly rushed out of the cave. Sure enough, at this moment, 5 figures swept across the sky. When they sensed Su Yi's presence, they immediately descended and both parties met face to face. It's not that kid. After seeing Su Yi, the old man could not help but frown when he realized that it was a young man in his 30s in front of him. Don't block me. Su Yi, who had disguised himself as a burly man, shouted angrily. He held a broadsword in his hand and shouted at the 5 7-Star Sword School's Origin Emperor Realm powerhouses in front of him. As he spoke, he rushed forward as if he was in a hurry. It was as if he would slash the 5 people in front of him if they did not give way. Kid, do you want to die? The old man at the 2nd level of the Origin Emperor Realm shouted angrily. This kid was too arrogant to talk to the 5 of them like that. However, just as he was about to attack and teach this kid a lesson, a voice came from the front. Human, let's see where you can run to today. Such a voice was majestic and domineering, as if it came from the mouth of an emperor. Then, under the gaze of the 5 people from the 7-Star Sword School, a short figure that looked like a child flew from the void and went straight to the burly man in his 30s in front of them. Devouring Soul's Sovereign, it's you. The old man at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor Realm was stunned as he looked at the short figure and said, Naturally, he knew the Devouring Soul's Sovereign and knew how fierce he was. Therefore, he spoke politely. You're from the 7-Star Sword School? The Devouring Soul's Sovereign glanced at them and said nonchalantly, May I ask about the Devouring Soul's Sovereign? We're looking for a young man and a little bird. May I ask if you've seen them? The old man from the 7-Star Sword School cupped his fist and asked the Devouring Soul Sovereign. He only wanted to find Su Yi and Handsome Su. However, at this moment, he had lost track of them. This made him a little angry. Seeing that the devouring soul sovereign seemed to have come from that direction, perhaps he had seen the young man and the little bird. However, the devouring soul sovereign's answer disappointed them. I haven't seen them. After that, the devouring soul sovereign stared directly at the burly man in his 30s who was disguised by Su-yi. However, he said to the people from the 7-star sword school, "Go after the people you're looking for. Leave this kid to me." Upon hearing this, the burly man in his 30s seemed to be extremely nervous. He could not help but move closer to the people from the 7-star sword school and said hurriedly, "Everyone, I've seen the young man and the little bird you're talking about. If you can save me, I'll tell you where they went." He looked panicked, as if he was afraid of falling into the devouring soul sovereign's hands. "You've seen them? Tell us." One of the people from the 7-star sword school immediately grabbed Su-yi's arm and shouted coldly, "Take me away first. I'll definitely tell you." Su-yi hurriedly promised, "7-star sword school, I want this person. You better think carefully." At this moment, the devouring soul sovereign shouted coldly with a hint of anger. The old man from the 7-star sword school originally wanted to negotiate with the devouring soul sovereign. However, after hearing the devouring soul sovereign's words, he immediately gave up. He turned his head and looked at Su-yi. "All right, I promise you. However, you have to tell me where the young man and the little bird went first. When the time comes, we'll take you with us. However, if you lie to us, even if we get rid of the devouring soul sovereign, the 7-star sword school will make you wish you were dead." The old man's words were soft, but contained a strong, murderous intent. However, the meaning of his words was very clear. If the man in his 30s wanted to go with them, he had to tell them where the young man and the little bird went first. The latter part of his words sounded like a threat, but it was more like a guarantee. "Very well, 7-star sword school. Do you really want to be my enemy?" When the devouring soul sovereign heard all of this, his face turned cold. An icy aura surged from his body, causing one's soul to tremble. "Umph. Devouring soul sovereign, the 7-star sword school is not afraid of you." In response, the old man from the 7-star sword school snorted coldly. Then, he turned to the man disguised by Su-yi and said, "Boy, speak quickly. If you delay, I don't mind helping the devouring soul sovereign to kill you." His words were unusually cold, as if he had lost his patience. "Okay." Su-yi immediately pretended to be overjoyed, as if he completely believed the words of the 7-star sword school. He immediately pointed in a direction and said, "The young man and the bird went that way, but they looked a little strange. They seemed to be able to hide their aura. I only saw them when they passed by me." He said it as if it was true and even explained it clearly. In this way, the people from the 7-star sword school immediately believed him. 7-star sword school, I advise you not to make a mistake. The devouring soul sovereign was furious. He immediately shouted angrily, his murderous intent boiling and spreading in the void. He was afraid that as soon as the people from the 7-star sword school took Su-yi away, he would immediately attack. "Seniors, please take me away." Su-yi looked at the people from the 7-star sword school and quickly pleaded. It seemed like he did not want to stay there any longer. However, the old man with white hair who was at the 6th level origin royal stage sneered and tapped Su-yi a few times with his finger, completely sealing his cultivation so that he could not move at all. "Devouring soul sovereign, we just want information. I'll leave this brat to you. Let's part ways here." The old man lifted Su-yi up and threw him to the devouring soul sovereign. Subsequently, as he spoke, the 5 7-star sword sect members directly tore through the sky and left, and they didn't even spare a glance at Su-yi. "The young man and the bird can't have gone far. Let's go after them." Only this lingering voice was left in the distant sky, which reached the ears of Su-yi and the devouring soul sovereign. "Master, are you all right?" Seeing that the people from the 7-star sword school had left, the devouring soul sovereign immediately released the restriction in Su-yi's body. Phew! Su-yi rubbed his arm and felt some pain from the old man's pinch. If he did not have the body of the guardian warrior, his arm would have been broken by the old man. "We finally fooled them. Let's go. There are still many things to do." It's my turn to perform. Su-Yi pulled the devouring soul sovereign and quickly ran in the direction of the seven-star sword school's mine. Emperor Devouring Spirit unleashed his cultivation. Carrying Su-Yi, he was even faster than when little handsome Su carried him. Chapter 1009. The Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian are all there. I wonder how they're doing. On the way, Su-Yi began to explain to the Devouring Spirit Emperor what had happened, which left the Devouring Spirit Emperor dumbfounded. Only now did he know that Su-Yi had done so many big things that had caused so many Origin Emperors from the Seven-Star Sword School to come out and hunt him down. The Devouring Spirit Emperor felt that even though his impression of Su-Yi had changed greatly after he had gained some benefits, he still felt that he had underestimated his master. Fortunately, you've finished your seclusion. Otherwise, it might have been more troublesome this time. Su-Yi cannot help but sigh. His plan was really aided by God. The people from the Seven-Star Sword School knew the Devouring Spirit Emperor, so naturally, they would not associate him with himself and handsome Su, nor would they think too deeply about it. In addition, the Devouring Spirit Emperor had solemnly said that he would capture Su-Yi in disguise, so the people from the Seven-Star Sword School had to give him face. They could not start a war with a beast emperor for a stranger. Because of this, it was much easier for Su-Yi to escape, and he would not be taken away by the five people directly. If the Seven-Star Sword School knew the truth, wouldn't they cry? After understanding the cause and effect, the Devouring Spirit Emperor suddenly had such a thought in his mind. He had never been a good person, but he had never been as black-bellied as Su-Yi, who was full of evil ideas and did not even bat an eyelid when he set someone up. Therefore, the Devouring Spirit Emperor had the urge to laugh evilly. It was the first time he had done something like this, and it gave him a sense of novelty. Hurry up, hurry up! Just as Su-Yi and the Devouring Spirit Emperor were moving quickly and were halfway to the mine, a cluster of signals exploded in the sky again. It was exactly the same as the signals released by the Seven-Star Sword School disciples earlier. The Green Emperor and the others have already made their move. Let's go faster. Su-Yi had no time to hide his whereabouts. He let the Spirit-Devouring Emperor take him into the air and rush to the mine as fast as he could. Once the signal was sent out, it must mean that the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and Huang Jian had made their move. Su-Yi didn't know how many Origin Emperors the Seven-Star Sword School had left in the mine, or if the three of them would succeed. In addition, the five people that he had pointed in the direction of his grandmother's house would probably return immediately after seeing this signal. Therefore, Su-Yi did not have much time left. Devouring Spirit Sovereign pushed his speed to the extreme. Now that he was at the 5th level of the Demon Emperor realm, he was comparable to a human at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm, or even stronger. It didn't take long for the two of them to enter the mine. Along the way, they also saw some disciples of the Seven-Star Sword School fleeing for their lives. A large number of slaves were also fleeing in all directions. Master, over here. While Su-Yi was looking for the exact location of the mine, a figure soared into the sky from afar and waved at Su-Yi and the Spirit-Devouring Emperor. It was the Green Emperor. Let's talk about other things later. Tell me where the unmined ores are. Su-Yi hurriedly asked the Green Emperor. At the same time, the three of them had gathered together. The Green Emperor pointed at a few mines below and said, "There are primordial stones in these mines. The rest have not been dug out yet. Look at the mine. It has just been mined. There are still a lot of primordial stones." Okay. Su-Yi nodded. After landing on the ground, he called out the mysterious space and let Su Xiaoshui out. Anyway, there was no one else here, so he was not afraid of being exposed. Then, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Netherworld and Huang Jian also gathered around. Su-Yi said to them, "You guys stay outside and protect me. It may take some time. If the 5 disciples of the Seven-Star Sword School come back, you guys can block them." After that, he ordered the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Netherworld, and the others to attack together. They blasted away the soil above a shallow mine, revealing a direct passage. Su-yi jumped down alone and entered the passage. "Master, what are you going to do?" They were all very confused and had no idea what Su-yi was going to do. They had followed Su-yi's plan and had come this far, but they still didn't know what their master was going to do. They couldn't help but be puzzled. There were not many primordial stones in this mine. Could Su-yi have the ability to move mountains and carry the whole mine away? Otherwise, what would happen to him when he entered the mine? If you excavated the primordial stones piece by piece, you might not be able to excavate much before the disciples of the Seven-Star Sword School came and made dumplings for you. However, although they were confused, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Netherworld, and the others still trusted Su-yi. They knew that he must have some plan. Therefore, they were very interested in what Su-yi was going to do after he jumped in the passage. Start. Su-yi landed on the primordial stones, but they were still in the form of giant stones. He looked up at the empty and straight passage and let out a long breath. He squatted down and put one of his palms on the ground. The Origin Supreme technique in his body was activated. The vigorous primordial chi carried with it an aura as strong as the sea. It traveled through his meridians and surged in the great void spirit sea. At the same time, Su-yi emptied his mind and activated a mysterious force in his body. Rumble. In the next moment, the space suddenly began to tremble as if there was an earthquake. As time passed, the trembling became more and more violent. The entire mine was shaking. What's going on? Such a movement could not escape the attention of the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Netherworld, Huang Jian, the Devouring Spirit Sovereign, and Su Xiaoshui. Such a movement caused the entire hill to tremble. It was extremely terrifying. Most importantly, the movement was getting louder and more violent. Rumble. In just a few breaths, the ground of the hill under everyone's feet began to crack. The mine began to collapse, and the void began to distort. A terrible tremor was heard. Smoke and dust rose, and the roar pierced the sky. "It's from his sect leader," Huang Jian exclaimed. He found it unbelievable, and his face was filled with horror. There was no need for him to remind them. The Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Netherworld, and the Devouring Spirit Sovereign had already sensed it. Under their horrified gazes, the young man under the tunnel was half squatting with one hand on the ground. A dazzling light burst out from the ground and gathered at his palm. Like rivers flowing into the sea, it flowed into his body. What is Master doing? Is he going to absorb the energy of the entire mine? The Devouring Spirit Sovereign opened his mouth, and his eyes were wide as he stared at the young man below in disbelief. He could not believe what he said. If he absorbed all the origin stones in the entire mine, even with his cultivation base, he would not be able to withstand it. He would definitely explode and die. Moreover, Su-yi was only at the first level of the origin void stage. If he could absorb all the origin stones, it would be a disaster. Let's just watch. Boss is confident. Among them, Su Xiaoshui was the calmest. Perhaps it was because of his extraordinary bloodline that he was the calmest, even though his cultivation base was not as high as the others. It seemed that in Su Xiaoshui's eyes, Su-yi's horrifying actions were only natural. Hearing Su Xiaoshui's words, the others nodded silently. However, their eyes were still filled with shock and astonishment. Rumble. The entire mine shook violently as if it was being held by an invisible giant hand and was shaking with all its might. All the tunnels in the mine were collapsing and the ground was sinking. Large rocks were rolling and smashing into the ground, making a terrifying sound. At the same time, cracks appeared all over the mountain, crisscrossing and snaking densely. Su-yi was in the tunnel that they had dug. Huge rocks were smashing down from above, but Su-yi ignored them. With his current physical strength, not only was he the diamond body, but he had also been baptized by the golden dragon's blood essence. He did not care about the falling rocks at all. Of course, Su-yi was not a fool. The reason why he had dug a straight tunnel in the mine was to prevent the mountain from collapsing and burying him. But right now, other than Su-yi being able to deal with the mountain rocks, the Green Emperor and the others were also able to strike out from the air and shatter some of the mountain rocks into smithereens, so as to prevent Su-Yi from being affected by them. Rumble. In a loud roar, light burst out and enveloped Su-Yi's entire body. A terrifying aura flowed through his body, passed through his meridians, passed through the great void divine sea, and finally gathered in a mysterious place. Although these forces did not directly lie dormant in Su-Yi's body, they still brought great pressure to Su-Yi. His meridians were in pain. Oh no, the people from the 7-Star Sword School are here. When the loud noise was still going on, the Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead turned pale and looked into the distance. In their perception, several powerful auras were approaching rapidly. These auras belonged to the people who had left the mine and chased after Su-Yi and Handsome Su earlier. The Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead were very familiar with them. I wonder how long it will take for the sect leader to finish. Huang Jian murmured with a grave expression. What Su-Yi had done had shocked them to the extreme, but they did not know how he had done it. However, now was not the time to think about it. The people from the 7-Star Sword School had already returned. If they did not leave now, they would be in trouble if they delayed any longer. Of course, they were not afraid of the 5 people who had chased after Su-Yi and Handsome Su earlier. What they were afraid of was that more people from the 7-Star Sword School would arrive one after another. Once they were surrounded here, even if there were 3 LV5 Demon Emperors among them, they would be in trouble. Let's stop them first. Boss should be here soon, Handsome Su said in a low voice, flapping his wings. Okay. The Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, the Devouring Spirit Emperor, and Huang Jian all nodded and looked in the direction of the people from the 7-Star Sword School. Chapter 10:10. The 7-Star Sword School's mountain gate wasn't too far away from the ore mine. While Su-Yi was absorbing the boundless energy of the primordial stones in the ore mine, the 7-Star Sword School's sect master, Ran Jianxian, and the others had already received the signal from their disciples. They could immediately conclude that something had happened in the ore mine. Ran Jianxian didn't delay at all. He immediately mobilized a large number of experts in the sect and rushed to the ore mine. There are a total of 7 elders guarding the ore mine. They actually sent a signal at this time. What exactly has happened? The 7-Star Sword School's sect master, Ran Jianxian, was a middle-aged man who looked to be less than 50 years old. He was slightly plump and had a pair of small eyes embedded in his round face that emitted a bright light. Beside him was an old man who looked to be around 60 years old. Both of their auras were above the primordial emperor realm. Ran Jianxian was at the peak of the 5th level of the primordial emperor realm, while the old man was slightly weaker at the 3rd level of the primordial emperor realm. Sect Master, could it be that the information about the item hidden in the ore mine has been leaked? The old man glanced at the plump middle-aged man beside him and asked worriedly. Ran Jinshuan's face turned abnormally ugly when he heard this. It was so deep that it seemed like it was about to drip water. After a long while, he finally calmed down and said, "Those who know about the situation are only elders of the 7-Star Sword School and above. You can count them on one hand. No one would leak this information." He came to this conclusion after thinking about it for a while. There were less than 10 primordial emperors in the 7-Star Sword School. This time, because of that item, they had sent 7 people to guard the ore mine. Everyone was very clear about the importance of that item. There was no reason for the elders to make such a mistake and leak the information. If that's the case, the other factions wouldn't attack us just because of a primordial stone mine. The old man frowned. He couldn't figure out the reason behind it. Normally, an ore mine would be attractive enough. If it was rich in primordial stones, it would definitely be a huge windfall. However, for the nearby third-rate factions, it was absolutely impossible for them to attack the 7-Star Sword School, just because of ore mine. Moreover, they might not even be able to win. Even if 2 factions joined forces to take down the 7-Star Sword School, they would definitely suffer great losses in the end. Then, the other factions would be the Oriole behind them. The major forces definitely wouldn't be so foolish as to do such a thing that would only benefit others. Therefore, as long as there was a huge benefit, no one would risk their lives to fight for it if they knew they couldn't get it. Of course, unless this treasure was truly too important and was an absolutely precious treasure, just like the treasure hidden within the seven-star sword sect's mine. Ran Jinchuan sect master sword sect master sect master sect. Ran Jianxian gritted his teeth, and his eyes began to turn red. Recently, he had been too haggard. First, his son was killed by someone in his Sword Star city. Even his mount and protector Lu of the sect died at the hands of that man and bird. It had been some time since he issued the reward, but he still hadn't received any specific information about the two little bastards. Originally, these things were enough to make Ran Jianxian furious. However, he didn't know what had happened in the ore mine today. If it was just an ordinary ore mine, it would be fine. What he was most afraid of was that something important had happened to it. With a heavy and uneasy heart, Ran Jianxian and the old man at the third level of the Origin Emperor realm took the lead. They didn't even sit on their mounts. They rushed to the ore mine at the fastest speed with their own cultivation. Behind them, a large number of Origin Void Realm figures followed, but they were quickly left behind. In the ore mine, the 5 Origin Emperor Realm Elders of the 7-Star Sword School had already rushed back. Soon, they were facing Su Xiaoshui, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, Huang Jian, and the Devouring Spirit Emperor. 5 against 5. In terms of overall strength, Su Xiaoshui and the others still had the absolute advantage. However, at this time, they didn't want to waste too much time here because the others from the 7-Star Sword School might be rushing over. In fact, these people were a little surprised. How could the 7-Star Sword School have so many Origin Emperor Realm experts? It was hard to imagine that they had sent 7 people just for a mere mine. However, they didn't think too much about it. They all attributed it to the strength of the 7-Star Sword School. After all, this was a third-rate force that was very close to a second-rate force. It wasn't surprising that there were a few hidden experts. Kill, after seeing the Green Emperor and the others, and then seeing Su Yi below, the experts of the 7-Star Sword School immediately understood that they had been fooled. These people were obviously using the strategy of luring the tiger away from the mountain. What puzzled them the most was that they also knew the Devouring Spirit Emperor. He was actually in the same group as that brat. The 2 Origin Emperor Realm experts guarding the ore mine had already fallen, and the entire ore mine was also undergoing an unknown change. The rumbling shook the sky, and this made the 5 people who rushed back furious. A terrifying battle began in an instant. Large amounts of light burst out crazily, spreading in the sky. Unparalleled energy swept in all directions, invading the sky and the earth. The void trembled uncontrollably, and the ore mine below directly collapsed. The 5 Origin Emperor Realm experts couldn't gain any advantage under the obstruction of the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, the Devouring Spirit Emperor, and Huang Jian. Su Xiaoshui protected Su Yi by his side, flapping his wings time and time again, sending huge rocks flying. Otherwise, Su Yi would definitely be buried alive under the terrifying collapse of the mountain rocks. Not long after, the bright light finally burst out from Su Yi's palm. Then, he withdrew it, and all the aura suddenly disappeared. Ouch! He let out a howl, and his body went limp, almost collapsing on the ground. There was a violent feeling all over his body. However, Su Yi gritted his teeth and held on. After circulating the Origin Supreme skill in his body again, he felt much better. "Boss, is it done?" Su Xiaoshui rushed to Su Yi's side and asked loudly. "It's done." Su Yi nodded and replied. "Then let's go." Su Xiaoshui was excited. He rushed down and wanted to take Su Yi with him. "Wait," Su Yi interrupted him and said, "There seems to be something wrong in this or mine." As he spoke, Su Yi glanced at the battle above, and then jumped up and came to the top of the hill. The hill in front of him was already flat, as if it had been reclaimed. The originally huge mine holes had been flattened by the violent tremors. At the same time, there were huge cracks on the hill, like watermelons that had been exposed to the scorching sun. The cracks crisscrossed and almost divided the hill into several pieces. There, after Sue came to the ground, he glanced around and found an accurate position not far away. Then, he jumped into a big crack next to him. At the bottom of the crack, there were primordial stones, but now they were dim. Sue took out a big saber from his space bag and slashed down. Puff! The energy of the primordial stones in the ore mine had been absorbed completely, and they were extremely soft. With Suyi's strength, he could cut through them with his saber. It was easier than cutting through rocks and soil. After a few slashes, Sue dug out a big hole that was big enough for him to get in. Then, he continued to dig deeper. Boss! Looking at Su Yi's fast movements, Su Xiaoshui guessed that his boss must have found something unusual. He was constantly paying attention to the battle above. Waves of terrifying energy were being released, so he did not want the aftermath to hurt him and Su-yi. It should be around here. Su-yi kept digging out a large amount of primordial stone fragments. When he had just absorbed the energy of the primordial stones, he could feel that there was something special about this place. It contained a vast amount of energy, but after all the primordial stones in their mine had dimmed, there did not seem to be any changes. This made Su-yi feel very strange. With the mysterious space's ability, if it could not absorb the energy, then it was definitely not primordial stones. If that was the case, there was only one possibility. There were other treasures buried here. Sure enough, not long after Su-yi dug, he entered a cave. At a glance, the cave was not very big. It was only the size of a room, and the surroundings were originally filled with primordial stones. What was strange was that someone had set up pillars around the cave, as if to prevent it from collapsing. Someone has been here before, and in the end, they sealed it up again, turning this place into a secret place. Su-yi came to this conclusion after looking around. There were primordial stones all around, and there was no way out. However, there were traces of people, which meant that this place was deliberately blocked by someone. In addition, Su-yi also felt the traces of a seal. It relied on the primordial stones to provide energy, but at this time, the seal was completely destroyed. That is, suddenly, Su-yi's eyes froze as they stopped at an object. In the center of this space, there was a piece of green stone quietly standing there. It was only the size of a small stool. The stone's shape was not regular, but its surface was round and sparkling. Even from a distance, Su-yi could feel a mysterious energy emanating from the stone. It made him feel refreshed, as if even his soul was clear. Treasure. It's definitely a treasure. Su-yi was shocked. The way he looked at the stone changed. His soul force was now very strong. He had not touched it, but it made him feel so strange. It was obvious that the stone was not an ordinary object. It must be a treasure. What a powerful aura. Chapter 10:11. At this instant, Su-yi felt his soul obtain an extremely great sense of satisfaction. Moreover, the energy within his body swiftly underwent a transformation because of the advancement of his soul. It wasn't long before his cultivation shot up, and he was about to step into the second level of the Void Origin stage. Such a change was too shocking, and it simply exceeded his imagination. If he didn't experience it himself today, Su-yi would never dare believe that there was such an item in the world that was capable of having such a terrifying effect. Wait! However, in the next moment, Su-yi was abruptly stunned, and his slightly closed eyes abruptly opened as he cried out in his heart, "Something's wrong. What a formidable rock. It actually causes one to hallucinate. Moreover, it's so real and without a trace." Su-yi was extremely shocked in his heart, and when he carefully sensed it, his soul didn't have much of a change. Besides that, even though the origin energy within his body had inexplicably become violent, there was still some distance before he broke through. Everything he felt earlier was a hallucination, but this hallucination was so real and practically without a trace, causing Su-yi to unknowingly fall into it. If it wasn't for his soul's extraordinary strength, he would probably have completely fallen into it earlier, and then his origin energy would inexplicably surge violently, causing his meridians to go into disorder, and he would suddenly die. I almost died. Su-Yi recovered from his shock, and he didn't dare let his guard down as he looked at the jade-green rock. He tried to circulate his origin energy with the intention of putting away the rock, but the terrifying thing was that there was an even more terrifying energy on the rock that actually followed along his origin energy and entered into his body, and it instantly wanted to invade Su-Yi's mind. Fortunately, Su-Yi reacted in time and cut off this connection. Even then, he was greatly terrified, and this feeling was even more terrifying than before. No one took this thing away. So it turns out that it's capable of invading one's soul, and it's impossible to take it away. So he was shocked in his heart as he thought like this. Obviously, the members of the 7-Star Sword School had noticed the existence of this thing long ago, and they'd even opened up this small space and set up restrictions. However, this obviously extraordinary stone was left here. Perhaps it wasn't that Ran, Jianxian, and the others didn't want to take it away, but that they couldn't. Even if this thing was touched with Yuan Qi, it could shake a person's heart and soul, causing their soul to almost collapse. If it was touched with physical body, it could probably devour a person's soul in an instant. It was simply too terrifying. Even with my soul strength, I almost couldn't withstand it. It's normal that Ran Jianxian and the others from the 7-Star Sword School couldn't take it away. So he came to such a conclusion. His soul power was definitely much stronger than the people of the 7-Star Sword School. Even the experts of the primitive Emperor realm would find it hard to compare with him. On the other hand, they definitely didn't have any high-level alchemists, artificers, or soul controllers. Otherwise, they would definitely have a way to take it away. Since I've seen it today, this stone is mine. We still didn't know what this stone was, and he didn't have any records of it. He could only go back and ask his elder brother, Merciless West. Even so, Su-Yi knew that this stone was definitely a precious treasure. As long as he could find a way to use it, it would definitely bring him great benefits. Thinking of this, Su-Yi became excited. Rise! Su-Yi let out a roar as he operated the Origin Supreme technique and the art of controlling heaven to the extreme. Then he suddenly struck out a palm print and grabbed the green stone in his hand. In just a moment, he felt a powerful force move along the palm print and enter his body. Then, it suddenly tore at his soul, wanting to devour him. However, under Su-Yi's power grab, the green stone was directly pulled out from the ground, and the root even made a cracking sound. Immediately after, this small space flashed with a bright light and then disappeared. Along with it, Su-Yi and the stone's figures also disappeared. It's finally done. At this time, Su-Yi had already entered his own mysterious space. In front of him, the green stone also appeared. Seeing this item, Su-Yi's mouth curled into a happy smile, and his heart was extremely carefree. He used the art of controlling heaven to resist the terrifying soul-devouring power, and then brought this stone into the mysterious space. This way, this item really belonged to him. I'll have to study it carefully in the future. It's not in vain that I almost fell for you. Su-Yi chuckled as he looked at the stone in front of him. He took a few deep breaths and thought that if it wasn't for the art of controlling heaven, even with his powerful soul power, it was very likely that he would be trapped in this stone. This space, then, after Su-Yi's gaze moved away from the stone, he looked as if he had seen a ghost. His mouth opened into a circle, and he couldn't close it for a long time. He had already mentally prepared himself. He knew that after absorbing the power of the primordial stones in the mine, the mysterious space would inevitably undergo a huge change. But now that he really looked at it, he was extremely shocked because the range of this space had expanded by many times again. With Su-Yi's current strength, it was impossible to see the end of it at a glance. Roughly estimating, it was at least the size of a few hundred miles. So much spiritual liquid. Just as he withdrew his thoughts from the scale of the mysterious space, the small pool of spiritual liquid attracted Su-Yi's attention again, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The entire small pool of spiritual liquid had already been emptied by him, and not a single drop was left. He only used it sparingly. But now, he suddenly discovered that the small pool was full, and there was a tendency for it to overflow. So much spirit liquid simply caused him to go wild with joy. Kid, why did such a big change happen to this space? What did you do this time? At this moment, the blood jasper spirit ginseng drilled out of the soil next to him and asked Sue. While speaking, the blood jasper spirit ginseng had already run to the side of the small pool of spiritual liquid. Grandpa Ginseng, I'll tell you in detail later. You can use the small pool of spiritual liquid yourself, but don't use too much. Leave some for me. I still have something to do outside, so I'll take my leave first. Seeing the blood jasper spirit ginseng appear, Sue hurriedly said. The small pool of spiritual liquid made Sue suddenly feel that he was rich. So naturally, he was very generous to let the blood jasper spirit ginseng use it himself. But before he could finish his sentence, he exposed his stingy nature again. It was all because he was too poor in the past. Thinking that handsome Sue, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and the others were still fighting fiercely with the people of the Seven-Star Sword School outside, Sue did not stay in the mysterious space any longer. After taking one last look at the green stone, he left this place. Swoosh! When Sue returned to the cave space, he immediately saw a mark on the ground where the stone was previously. Did the stone absorb the power of the primeval stone to grow, or did the entire mine exist because of it? Sue raised his eyebrows slightly as he thought to himself. There were broken lines on the mark, which was obviously the connection between the green stone and the primeval stone. However, the power of the primeval stone had long been absorbed by Sue, so now it looked gray and dull. Time to go. Sue did not think too much and directly left the small space. When he returned to the surface, handsome Sue was waiting for him at the entrance of the cave. Everything is done. Let's go. Sue raised his head and shouted at the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, the Devouring Spirit Emperor, and Huang Jian in the sky. The battle there had already reached its climax. The 5 people from the Seven-Star Sword School were like crazy, frantically trying to break free from the restraints of the Green Emperor and the others, but they were firmly restrained. If it were not for the fact that they had to take care of Huang Jian and prevent him from getting injured in the battle, the cultivation of the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, and the Devouring Spirit Emperor would definitely be able to kill 1 or 2 of the opponents. Master, you go first. We will cover the rear. We will catch up in a moment. The Green Emperor shouted at Sue. Okay. Sue was not a person who dilly-dallied. Immediately, he and handsome Sue soared into the sky and fled into the distance. Little bastard, the Seven-Star Sword School will not let you go. In the distant sky, the white-haired elder of the Seven-Star Sword School roared in anger, as if he had gone mad. Something like this had happened today. The 5 Emperor-level powerhouses had been fooled by that kid, and the other 2 Origin Emperors had fallen. Even if it was the Seven-Star Sword Sect, such a loss could be said to be a serious injury. In addition, the young master had been killed, Protector Liu had died tragically, and the Sky-Splitting Tiger had been beheaded. Not only had the Seven-Star Sword School lost face, but they had also suffered heavy losses. In addition, he still did not know what that little bastard had done to the mine, or whether that treasure had been lost. Retreat. After a while, seeing Sue and handsome Sue's figures far away, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, the Devouring Spirit Emperor, and Huang Jian abandoned each other and chased after them. With their speed, it would not take long for them to catch up with Sue and handsome Sue. Chase after them. We can't let these people go so easily. The white-haired elder of the Seven-Star Sword School roared and ordered the other 4 to chase after them. Along the way, they also left behind the unique traces of the Seven-Star Sword School so that the others in the sect could catch up. Not long after Sue, the Green Emperor, and the Seven-Star Sword School left, there was a fluctuation in the air above the hill. Then, 2 figures could be seen approaching from afar. They arrived at the top of the hill in an instant and stopped abruptly. The 2 people who appeared were led by a slightly plump middle-aged man. His face was round, and his small eyes were shining brightly. At this moment, he was trying his best to keep them open. How could this be? The middle-aged man was Ran Jianxian, and the other elder beside him was an elder of the Seven-Star Sword School. When Ran Jianxian saw that the hill had changed beyond recognition, he was completely stunned. The originally huge mines had long been flattened and completely covered up. Chapter 10:12. Look, Sect Master. Just as Ran Jianxian was in a daze, the old man beside him suddenly called out to him and pointed to a spot in front of them. The two of them rushed over and picked up a large stone from the ground. With a light pinch, the stone turned into fine powder and was blown away by the wind. Then the old man dug around on the ground and swept out a large piece of grayish-white stone. It was the same texture as the one he had just picked up. Why are all these primordial stones destroyed? The old man quickly discovered that all the primordial stones in the mine had lost their energy. Even if he dug deeper, all the primordial stones had turned grayish-white and turned into powder with a light pinch. This situation was a little strange, and no one could understand what was going on. Who had the ability to destroy such a large mine in such a short time? The energy of the primordial stones could not be absorbed so quickly. Who is it that dared to offend my Seven-Star Sword School? I, Ran Jianxian, will not rest until he or she is dead. At this moment, Ran Jianxuan's voice came from another direction. He had already gone elsewhere when the old man was exclaiming. Hearing his angry roar, the old man immediately rushed over and entered a cave from a crack in the mountain. After entering, he saw Ran Jianxian standing in the middle of the cave. The stone that should have been in front of him was nowhere to be seen. That item, who could have taken it away from him? The old man was also very shocked as he looked in front of Ran Jianxian and said in a daze, "Find him. You must find that person." Ran Jianxian was furious as he roared. The aura of the primordial emperor realm surged into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying primordial chi surged out from his body and stirred up a terrifying power. The cave was instantly shattered into pieces. Countless rocks flew into the air and dust covered the sun. Sect Master, there are signs left behind by them. At this moment, the old man walked up and said to Ran Jianxian. He found the signs left behind by the other people of the Seven-Star Sword School to guide them. Those people might not have run far. The elders have already chased after them. We still have a chance to get the treasure back. Ran Jianxian finally calmed down a little and said coldly, "Go." The two of them soared into the sky and moved quickly. The old man at the side saw Ran Jianxuan's small eyes narrowing more and more, and he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. He knew what the treasure in the cave meant and what kind of benefits it could bring to the Seven-Star Sword School. It could even be said that the entire mine was not even 1% of the value of that stone. It was obvious how precious it was. As long as they made good use of it, it wouldn't be long before their Seven-Star Sword School could become a true second-rate force and quickly establish their foothold. This piece of news was closely guarded. Other than the strongest people in the Seven-Star Sword School, no one else knew about it. How could Ran Jianxian not be infuriated? Even the old man at the third level of the Origin Emperor realm was infuriated. On the other side, Su Xiaoshui, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, the Devouring Spirit Emperor, and Huang Jian were running quickly, not daring to delay. They weren't afraid of the 5 people chasing after them, but they were worried that the other people from the Seven-Star Sword School would come. Besides, the Gimdeo sect wasn't too far away. If they were surrounded here, the consequences would be unimaginable. The Seven-Star Sword School won't let us off so easily after we stole this treasure. It's best if we can go back first and lie low for a while. He thought to himself as he ran for his life. Earlier, he was still wondering why the Seven-Star Sword School would have so many Origin Emperors guarding a mine. It didn't make sense. However, he didn't think too much about it. He just thought that the mine was very important to them, or that other forces were coveting it. That was why they sent so many experts to guard it. Now that he thought about it, it was probably because of the green stone. The people from the seven-star sword school must know what it was and what it could be used for. That was why they sent almost all the origin emperors in the sect to guard it. However, in the end, all the benefits fell into Su Yi's pocket. The energy of the mine aside, the green stone was definitely a big surprise. Su Yi was thinking about how to get rid of the pursuers behind him. He couldn't use the same trick again. This time, if Su Yi wanted to use the disguise technique again, it would be impossible unless the people from the seven-star sword school were really stupid. This time, Ran Jianxian will definitely be as violent as thunder. We have to be careful. Huang Jian reminded from the side. Everyone nodded their heads in agreement. A third-rate sect that was close to a second-rate force was definitely not to be underestimated. The main point was that it wasn't the first time Su Yi and the seven-star sword sect had become enemies, and with this new enmity and old enmity added together, if Ran Jianxian were to go mad, who knew what he would do? The pain of losing his son, in addition to all the unimaginable losses, would definitely make Ran Jianxuan's heart ache so much that he couldn't breathe. Now that the Bawang sect's strength had skyrocketed, Su Yi didn't let it get to his head. He was still aware of the difference between him and those third-rate forces. Moreover, the heritage that they had accumulated over the years wasn't something that the Bawang sect could compare to. Master, why don't we take advantage of the time before Ran Jianxian arrives and kill that old man at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm? At the side, Green Emperor didn't need to look back to know that the 5 people from the 7-star sword school were fast and were hot on their heels. The main reason was that the gray-haired old man at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm was very strong. It wouldn't be easy to shake him off. If Green Emperor, Yin Yang Underworld Emperor, and Devouring Spirit Emperor joined forces, they would definitely be able to kill him in a short time. This way, it would be much easier for Su Yi and the others to escape. The mine isn't far from the 7-star sword school. Ran Jianxian might be arriving soon. We can't delay any longer. Let's go around in circles in the forest first, Su Yi said after thinking for a while. If they attacked the people behind them now and Ran Jianxian arrived, it would be very troublesome. With such a delay, it would be even more difficult to escape. The vast forest was right in front of them. Su Yi felt that as long as they weren't surrounded, there were still many ways to escape. With this thought in mind, the group of 6 no longer flew in the sky. Instead, they directly plunged into the deep forest. Behind them, the 5 people from the 7-star sword sect swiftly followed up, and they followed behind Su Yi's group as they pursued the obscure aura. At the same time, the people from the 7-star sword school left unique marks on the road to show Ran Jianxian the way. They believed that the sect leader would definitely rush over after knowing the situation. It's really not peaceful recently. Something big has happened again. What is it? Didn't you hear? One of the mines of the 7-star sword school was destroyed. Many disciples were killed, including 2 elders at the Origin Emperor realm. What? Who was so audacious to actually dare make a move against the 7-star sword sect? Is he tired of living? Do you think someone who can kill 2 elders at the Origin Emperor realm is tired of living? One of the elders was at the 3rd level of the Origin Emperor realm, while the other was at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm. It's terrifying. Such a conversation took place between 2 rogue cultivators. When the latter heard the news, he had a fearful expression. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. The 7-star sword school was too powerful. It was one of the strongest forces in the area. No one dared to provoke them. But just a day or 2 ago, someone actually destroyed one of their mines and killed many of the 7-star sword school's disciples. That's not the main point. Do you know what the main point is? In another place, someone asked his companion mysteriously. There was a deep sense of pride in his eyes, as if he had grasped a great secret. What's the main point? The person beside him was also interested. The main point is that the person who attacked was the young man who killed young sect leader Ran, Protector Lu, and sky-splitting tiger Ayuka, and that little bird. The person who spoke earlier immediately raised his eyebrows and revealed this shocking news. His companions beside him all widened their eyes filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Were those two really that strong? No matter how profound a young man's cultivation is, it's impossible for him to be at the origin emperor realm, right? Some people still couldn't believe it and spoke out their own diagnosis. They had naturally heard of the story of the man and the bird, and they were deeply shocked by it. But what happened in Sword Star City was already terrifying enough. But to say that he was able to fight against the origin emperor realm of the 7-star sword school head-on and kill his opponent, that was impossible. You don't know about this, right? The person who spoke earlier became even more proud. His nostrils were raised to the sky as he said in a buzzing voice, "Don't underestimate that young man. Not only is his cultivation profound, but he also has several demon emperor realm beast emperors by his side. You know the devouring spirit emperor, right? That's an infamous existence. There's also the yin-yang underworld emperor. It's said that he's also a terrifying beast emperor not far away. There's also another powerful beast emperor. They're all companions of that young man. Of course, there's also that little bird." Chapter 10:13. The cultivator's words caused many of his companions to fall into deep thought. They could not figure out what kind of background and identity that young man had to be able to make several beast emperors follow him. This was something that they could not understand at all. Similar discussions took place among the large and small forces and rogue cultivators in the vicinity from time to time. Many people were shocked by what Su-Yi had done. Of course, Su-Yi had just arrived in the Chaos region and had not interacted with many outsiders. Other than Ji Han-Nua and Ji Tianfu from the Xinjian sect, not many people knew his name, except for shopkeeper Xiaohou from the Lingbao sect. Therefore, the people from the 7-star sword school and the Gimdeo sect all called Su-Yi Little Bastard or Little Bastard. That brat Su-Yi really isn't simple. Ever since he appeared, there hasn't been any peace in this area. 3 beast emperors are willing to follow him. This is unbelievable. And that Huang Jian, it seems like he only broke through to the origin emperor realm after meeting him. The people from the Xinjian sect gathered in a valley. Ji Tianfu stood on a huge rock and muttered to himself in shock. When Su-Yi first appeared, it was to save his daughter. It was also from then on that big things started to happen in this area. A few sects had suffered great losses because of him. In addition, Ji Tianfu couldn't figure out why a few emperor-level powerhouses would follow him. And the biggest shock in his heart came from this. He is really powerful. He is much stronger than I imagined. His guts are big too. Beside Ji Tianfu, Ji Han-Nua's large eyes blinked and curved into crescent moons. Her eyes were watery as her red lips curved into an arc looking at the girl's delicate appearance. Ji Tianfu sighed at the side. "Father, let's go out for a walk and let everyone gain more experience. In a few days, we will have to go back. Before that, we need to increase our strength. When the time comes, we will have more confidence in participating in the Alliance Conference." Ji Hanhua said to her father as if she did not see Ji Tianfu's expression. "Hanhua, do you really think I don't know what you were thinking?" Ji Tianfu stared at Ji Hanhua with a bitter smile and said, "Forget it. Let's go and gain more experience." After that, Ji Tianfu ordered the disciples to set off and enter the forest. Sword Star City, Lingbao sect. When the commotion caused by Su-Yi in the 7-star sword school's mind reached shopkeeper Xiaohou, the shopkeeper of Lingbao sect was not surprised. However, he was still shocked. From the central continent to the chaos realm, no matter where he goes, it's not peaceful. This brat, I'm afraid he's born to be a troublemaker. But this is really interesting. Conqueror Su-Yi. Shopkeeper Xiaohou's eyes sparkled. He was the only one who could hear him. Gimdeo sect. Yang Baikuan and a few origin emperors had returned to the sect. They still had lingering fears after escaping from the Green Emperor and the Yin-Yang Underworld Emperor. But today, when Yang Baikuan obtained information related to the 7-star sword sect, his originally gloomy heart abruptly had slight, indescribable pleasure. Logically speaking, his son had been killed by Su-Yi not long ago. Yang Baikuan should not have such feelings. but he was truly unable to endure the loss the Seven-Star Sword sect had suffered was too great. An entire Origin Stone mine had been destroyed by that little bastard, and the other 2 Origin Monarch stage elders had been killed. This caused young Baikuin to feel much better in his heart. At least there was someone who was even more unlucky than him. The Gimdeo sect strength was still not comparable to the Seven-Star Sword School. But now that the other side had suffered heavy losses, the gap between them was narrowed. And his father, the Gimdeo sect's overall strength, was not weaker than the Seven-Star Sword School. A primordial stone mine was suddenly destroyed. That little bastard is really strange. I don't know what kind of method he used. Young Baikuin's eyes were gloomy. He could not help but have a strong desire to kill when he thought of Su-yi. However, he calmed down and thought of what had happened to the Seven-Star Sword School. Although the primordial stone mine's reserves were not particularly large, it was definitely not small. But such a mine had become a pile of wasteland in a short period of time. All the energy in the primordial stones had dissipated and turned into ordinary stones. This kind of method was too treacherous, making people unable to understand it. In fact, young Baikuin was not the only one who thought of this problem. Many other experts also thought of this. However, everyone only thought that the little bastard must have some special method that destroyed the mine. After all, no one dared to imagine that the energy in the primordial stones would be absorbed. Not to mention that the little bastard was only at the first level of the Origin Void stage. Even if he had reached the 9th level of the Origin Emperor stage, it was impossible for him to absorb so much energy in one go. This was not something that could be imagined. It was something that did not make sense logically. If he forcefully absorbed a large amount of primordial stones, the final result would be his body exploding and he would die. If Sui knew what these people were thinking, he would be very happy. Moreover, he would tell them loudly, "You're right." Even he himself wondered if the mysterious space would be exposed because of this. At the very least, other people would suspect that he had a treasure that could absorb a large amount of energy. Now, other people had already thought of a reason for him to do so. Little bastard, young Baikuin, will avenge the death of my son, Yang Chuan. Young Baikuin said ferociously. He slammed his fist on the stone table beside him, causing the entire table to shatter into dust. Then, young Baikuin raised his head and shouted at the door. Someone sent a message to the Seven-Star Sword School. "I want to see Ran Jianxian." "Yes, sect leader." Someone outside the door responded, and then fell silent. Young Baikuin's eyes gleamed with hatred. His eyes were deep, but no one knew what he was thinking. He was shuttling through the forest. There was no one around him. He found an opportunity to send Su Xiaoshui, the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, the Devouring Spirit Emperor, and Huang Jian into the mysterious space. After all, if there were too many people, it would be too eye-catching. It would be easier to be exposed. Su-yi himself had also changed his clothes, and his aura had also changed. If one did not observe him carefully, it would be almost impossible to discover his true identity. These people from the Seven-Star Sword School are really haunting me. In the forest, Su-yi found a small stream and drank a few mouthfuls of water as he murmured. He had been hiding in the forest for 2 days, but the few Origin Emperors from the Seven-Star Sword School were always able to vaguely follow his footsteps. It wasn't that Su-yi's concealment technique wasn't brilliant, but it was truly that his luck wasn't too good. There was utterly no one else in the surroundings, so the traces he left behind were unique and naturally pointed out the direction for the Seven-Star Sword sect. Fortunately, it was difficult for them to find him in the dense forest. Once Su-yi concealed all his aura, he could still shake off the pursuers for a short time. I have to think of a way to shake them off. I can't bring these people back to my territory. Su-yi was thinking of a way. The Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead's territory could not be exposed, and the location of the Feng family village could not be known by outsiders. Therefore, this was what troubled Su-yi the most. It was not that he could not return to his territory immediately, but he could not completely avoid being followed all the way back. It would not be a good thing if he ended up being followed. Let's take it one step at a time. Su-yi could not think of a good idea at the moment. so he did not think too much about it. He continued to walk through the forest, and at the same time, he was always on the lookout for the pursuers who might appear at any time. What made him happy was that it didn't take long for him to meet a group of people. If there were outsiders here, it would be much easier for him to shake off the pursuers. After thinking for a while, he felt that he should blend in with these people. It would be more advantageous for him. Therefore, he found an open space nearby and hunted a low-level savage beast. He then started to make barbecue and meat soup. In my previous life, the old people always said that a craftsman would not starve to death in a barren land. Now that I think about it, the saying is really true. He had changed his appearance. He looked like a young man in his 20s. As he barbecued the meat, he sighed and muttered to himself, "Man, it's true that you need to have some skills to live a better life." To think that with my culinary skills, I would have never thought that I would be able to use them in such a situation. As he spoke, there was a slight smile on his lips. His gaze kept drifting in a certain direction. There was a group of people gathered there. They were the people that He had discovered. "Little brother, your barbecue method is really unique." I could smell the aroma of the meat from afar. What made He feel gratified was that not long after, a young man in his late 20s walked out from the group of people. He came to Yi's side and asked him. As the young man walked, he secretly swallowed his saliva. He turned to look at the big pot at the side, as if he was craving for it. "The spices that I use for my barbecue and meat soup are all my secret recipes. You can't find a second shop that uses them outside. Naturally, they're different from the rest." Hearing the young man's question, He smiled and replied without any modesty. He thought to himself that as long as he could talk to him, he would have succeeded in the first step. Chapter 10:14. Dear book fans, have you been staying up late to watch football matches? The World Cup has been going on for half a month, and it is rumored that there will be a 2-month football-themed competition from July to August. The competition will imitate the rules of the World Cup, and it will be divided into 2 stages, group stage and knockout stage. However, only the top 32 authors on the Devil Fruit list are eligible to participate in the competition. Whether you can become a member of the competition team depends on how well you guys deliver your Devil Fruit in the last few days of the month. Here, please support us with your Devil Fruit. Chapter 10:15. However, the young man's next words made Yi's heart skip a beat. I wonder if little brother has seen a 16 or 17-year-old boy in the vicinity. The young man looked at Yi and described the boy that he wanted to inquire about. Hearing this, Yi frowned deeply. Wasn't what this person was describing her true appearance? Could it be that he is from the 7-star sword school? Yi's expression did not change at all and did not reveal any trace. But this was what he thought in his heart. He observed the young man and his companion not far away. Their clothes were not uniform and did not look like they were from a certain sect. Therefore, Yi was unable to determine the true identity of the young man for a while. I have not seen the person you are talking about. He shook his head and said with a chuckle. He was extremely cautious in his heart and did not know why these people were looking for him. But there was no doubt that this was definitely not a good thing. Either it was someone from a certain sect who deliberately disguised themselves to investigate his whereabouts, or it was some rogue cultivator who did not hesitate to take the risk in order to obtain the reward. He felt that perhaps the former was more likely. He was a little dignified. He did not expect that the group of people that he had casually met was actually coming for him. This barbecue business seemed to have failed. Is that so? The young man glanced at Yi without leaving a trace and said meaningfully. At this time, the young man no longer swallowed his saliva because of the aroma of the barbecue. Instead, the muscles all over his body were somewhat tensed up. This scene was acutely captured by Yi. He frowned. Could it be that he was exposed just like that? Wasn't it a little too simple? Little brother, that boy is able to change his appearance. Perhaps at this time, he is poles apart from the appearance that I described. The young man looked at emotionlessly, and there was a violent yuan qi flowing through his body. He only heard him say, "Little brother, Could you be that boy? This sentence sounded like a joke, but Sui could not tell that it was a joke. As the young man spoke, he sent a signal to his companions who were not far away. His figure also retreated, putting some distance between him and Sui. At this point, even if Sui didn't understand, he had to accept this fact. He knew that he had been exposed. Even if these people weren't from the 7-star sword school, they were definitely here to kill him. If you're smart enough, you shouldn't have provoked me. Sui immediately lost his interest in barbecuing the meat. His figure rose into the air, and at the same time, a big saber appeared in his hand. Yuan Qi flickered under his feet as he took a few steps in the air. Like a cicada, in 8 steps, he slashed towards the young man. However, the young man was already prepared. He retreated again and returned to his companions. It really is this kid. I never imagined that he's the only one here. This time, we absolutely can allow him to escape. There was a total of 6 figures on the young man's side. Amongst them were 2 old men, 3 middle-aged men, and the young man from before. Most terrifying of all was that amongst the 6 people, the 2 old men and one of the middle-aged men had cultivations at the origin void stage. As they spoke, the 6 of them instantly surrounded Sui. One of the old men similarly held a long saber in his hand, and it glittered with a golden light as he brazenly slashed towards Sui. After a bang, Sui's attack was instantly destroyed and transformed into nothingness. 5th level of the origin void stage. Sui's arm shook as his figure flew backwards, and his expression became slightly serious. He felt pressure in his heart as he looked at the old man that attacked earlier. He'd just broken through to the origin void stage not long ago, and if it was a true battle, he wasn't especially afraid of an old man like this. However, he was about to face 3 origin void stage experts now. Besides that, there were also the numerous monarch stage experts of the 7-star sword school that could catch up to him at any moment. Swish. Only when Sui was pondering for a short moment did someone directly send out a signal amongst the people opposite him, and the signal charged into the sky before exploding out with an enormous thunderclap that shook the surroundings. It's inadvisable to stay here any longer. Retreat. Sui utterly didn't have to think any further before instantly turning around and leaving. The origin monarch stage experts of the 7-star sword school would surely catch up to him very quickly, and he couldn't waste time here. Kid, since you've revealed yourself, then you don't have the possibility of escaping. The 3rd level origin void stage middle-aged man grunted coldly, and he chased after Chun Shi with the other 2 old men. Every single one of them raised their sabers and slashed down. Dazzling saber lights were like rainbows that shot through the sky, and they carried a peerlessly sharp aura as they descended towards Sui. The 3 origin void stage experts attacked Sui from behind at the same time for the sake of delaying his footsteps and preventing him from escaping. Especially the 2 old men. They relied on their profound cultivations to reveal terrifying attacks that Sui was utterly unable to disregard. K off. Sui's gaze was icy cold as he shouted out loudly. Raging Dragon Slash. Origin energy gushed out and completely poured into the saber in his hand, causing a dazzling saber light to faintly emit the roar of a dragon. And it was like a gust of wind and thunder as it fiercely collided with the attacks of the 3 old men behind him in a peerlessly ferocious manner. Hiss! Saber collided with saber, causing energy to surge and light to shoot out in all directions. Sui felt his arm go numb, and the saber almost fell out of his hand as a few notches appeared on the saber. Receiving the joint attacks of the 3 old men at the same time caused his body to suffer some shock, but relying on his body that was tempered by the Vajra body and Golden Dragon blood essence, these shocks were nothing to Sui. However, his footsteps that intended to flee were really delayed for a moment. Don't go head-on with him, just delay him. The origin monarch stage experts of the sect will arrive here soon, and this kid can't escape today. The old man in the lead shouted out explosively once more, and the saber in his hand moved once more as he formed a triangle with the other two old men and charged towards Su-yi once more. They didn't go head-on with Su-yi, as so long as they delayed him here, it wouldn't be long before the experts of the sect would arrive, and this kid would be unable to escape no matter what. In reality, these people rejoiced in this. After all, according to the rumors, there were numerous formidable Monarch stage experts by this kid's side, and 3 of the Monarch stage experts amongst them had even attained the 5th level of the Origin Monarch stage. This was why he caused such an enormous disturbance recently. However, when they saw him today, not a single Monarch stage expert had made an appearance. Kill! Su-yi's gaze was icy cold, and his footsteps moved repeatedly, causing his figure to transform into an expanse of afterimages that were difficult to grasp like a ghost. This was the movement technique of the skyward transformation steps, and when executed by him, it was like a dream, like a nimble butterfly that moved freely between the 3 figures. Under the joint attacks of the 3 Origin Void Stage experts, they were utterly unable to touch the corners of Su-yi's clothes. Violent Dragon Overlord Slash. Suddenly, a voice like this shouted out loudly from Su-yi's mouth. The aura on his body wasn't held back in the slightest as Su-yi's aura at the first level of the Origin Void Stage exploded out, and a blazing storm gushed out as energy swept out towards the surroundings. A miniature blazing storm instantly spread out in the surrounding space, and a violent and sharp, fierce aura gushed out from within it. Su-yi didn't hesitate in the slightest as he held the saber with both hands and slashed down fiercely towards the 3 figures before him. Hiss! The saber light was like a bolt of lightning, and it seemed as if it dragged a long crimson bolt of lightning as it shot out explosively, and a crimson-red aura that covered the heavens and the earth suddenly swept out. Roar! A crimson dragon silhouette was faintly discernible within the saber light, and a violent and sharp aura exploded out with a bang. Shit, quickly disperse! Someone exclaimed in shock, and his face went ghastly pale, as this might was too terrifying. Rumble! The saber light slashed down, and everywhere it passed, a crimson dragon soared into the sky, and a monstrous wave surged violently, causing the scene to be shocking. The 2 old men retreated extremely quickly, and they didn't suffer any impact from this might. But the middle-aged man wasn't so lucky. The terrifying saber light struck his chest, and it was as if an enormous dragon had stretched out its sharp claws and brazenly tore his chest apart. In an instant, fresh blood sprayed out from the middle-aged man's chest like a fountain, and it transformed into a rain of blood that sprinkled down. The middle-aged man let out a shrill cry, but then he fell soundlessly from the sky and heavily smashed into the mountain forest below. This kid is so strong. The 2 old men and the 3 people who were watching the battle from afar felt their hearts palpitate when they saw this scene. This kid's strength was too strong, and his movement technique and saber technique were both strange and of high grade. With the combination of the 2, they actually suffered a great loss in a moment of carelessness, and they instantly lost one of their people. However, Su-yi wasn't feeling very well either, and the blood in his body was boiling. After all, there were 3 people on the other side, and he was alone. Even a tiger can't win against a pack of wolves. Not to mention that his opponent's cultivation levels were far above his own. Even so, he still created an opportunity to kill one of them. Little bastard, you must die today. Seeing one of their companions die so tragically, the 2 old men's faces were extremely gloomy, and they shouted angrily. As they spoke, the 2 of them once again joined forces and surrounded Su-yi. This kid was very strange, and they didn't dare to lower their guard at all. They launched an all-out attack against him. Damn it, you guys just won't leave me alone, Su-yi said coldly, and it was as if there was a huge rock pressing down on his head. It was obvious that the 2 old men wouldn't let him get away so easily. If this continues, then he really won't be able to escape. What made Su-yi's heart sink the most was that he could already feel a powerful aura rushing towards him from afar. It was most likely the Imperial-leveled powerhouses of the 7-Star Sword School. It seems that I have to expose myself first. Su Yi gritted his teeth and made a final decision in his heart. Things had reached a point where he couldn't stop. He could only call out the mysterious space and let the beast emperors attack and kill the few people present in an instant. By then, the imperial-leveled powerhouses of the other side would have arrived. By then, there would be no way to hide, and he could only be hunted down in the open. Chapter 10:16. The newcomer was a middle-aged man in a light blue robe with a golden belt around his waist. As his figure descended, a tyrannical pressure filled the space. The aura of the Origin Emperor realm expanded and directly suppressed the two old men. Sect leader Su Yi, who was about to open up the mysterious space, was stunned when he saw the newcomer. How could he not recognize the newcomer? Wasn't he the sect leader of Xinjian sect, Ji Tianfu? Under his attentive gaze, Ji Tianfu did not say a single word after he arrived. Instead, he brazenly struck out with two palms. Without any fluctuations or fancy movements, his palms instantly imprinted on the chests of the two Yuan Void Stage elders. PFFF, PFFF. With two dull sounds, the two old men exploded into two clouds of blood mist. They couldn't be more dead. In front of an Origin Emperor Realm expert, the cultivation of an Origin Void Realm expert was completely vulnerable. You are not far away. The three men who were still alive looked as though they had seen a ghost. They were so scared that they almost peed in their pants. Some of them had seen the sect leader of Xinjian sect, Ji Tianfu. How could they not panic when they saw him now? Dying. However, Ji Tianfu did not waste his breath. As his cold voice rang out, his figure appeared in front of the three of them. With three dull sounds, the three men turned into clouds of blood mist and died an unnatural death. As expected of an Origin Emperor Realm expert, Sui saw all of this and was dumbfounded. For a moment, he was a little stunned. Don't just stand there. Let's go. Ji Tianfu's figure flashed and came to Su Yi's side. He did not care if Su Yi wanted to say anything. He immediately grabbed Su Yi's arm and quickly left the place. In the blink of an eye, Su Yi and Ji Tianfu disappeared. No one knew where they went. Not long after they left, three figures dashed over from afar and stopped in their tracks. If Su Yi was still there, he would definitely recognize the three men. They were the Origin Emperor Realm experts of the Gimdeo sect. Sect leader Yang Baikuan was among them. Swish swish, Yang Baikuan and the other two had just arrived. They had only probed for a bit, but before they could communicate, the void trembled again. Then another five figures quickly arrived and stood on either side of them. They were the five Origin Emperor Realm elders who were guarding the 7-star Sword School's mine earlier. The people who just sent out the message were members of the Gimdeo sect. They're all dead now. Yang Baikuan's face was dark and gloomy. That brat has many Emperor Stage experts by his side. It's reasonable that they can't stop him. The leading elder of the 7-star Sword School said coldly, "That little bastard can't have run far. Chase after him." Then, he ignored Yang Baikuan and the others from the Gimdeo sect and led the 7-star Sword School to chase after them. I don't believe that you can escape from the pursuit of the Gimdeo sect and the 7-star Sword School. Sensing the stench of blood in the air, Yang Baikuan's eyes turned cold to the extreme. He clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles cracked. He gritted his teeth and said, "Little bastard, if I don't tear you into pieces, I, Yang Baikuan, am not human." He waved his hand and led the experts by his side to charge out as well. They chased after a trace of a faintly discernible aura. After these two groups of people left successively for a long time, the 7-star Sword sect leader, Ran Jianxian, and another Origin monarch appeared here as well. Besides that, many other experts from the two great sects had rushed over as well, but they immediately continued to chase after them. On the other side, Su Yi was led by Ji Tianfu to an open area. There were many people gathered here. Su Yi looked around and saw about a dozen young disciples. Every one of them had the Xinjian sect's logo on their clothes. Ji Hanual was one of them. Other than that, there were a few older people. It was obvious that they were the older generation experts of the Xinjiang sect. Thank you for saving me, sect leader Ji. He was led to the side by Ji Tianfu. After seeing the situation clearly, he immediately cupped his hands and thanked him. How could he still not understand that Ji Tianfu had suddenly appeared to save him? It was also because of Ji Tianfu's timely arrival that Yi did not need to summon the Green Emperor and the others to kill those people and shake off the pursuers. Deep down, Yi felt that he did not have a deep friendship with Ji Tianfu. You really know how to make a scene. You actually caused such a big commotion. Ji Tianfu glanced at him and laughed. However, the person you should really thank is not me. As he spoke, he unconsciously looked at the beautiful figure beside him with a playful smile. Father. Ji Hanua's face suddenly turned red. She glared at Ji Tianfu angrily and turned to look at Yi. She covered up her shyness and asked, Yi, are you all right? Ji Hanua blinked her bright eyes. Although she hid it well, Yi could still see the concern in her eyes. Yi was still in disguise. Therefore, Ji Hanua had been looking at him for a long time. When Ji Tianfu spoke and heard Yi's voice, she was sure that the person in front of her was really Yi. Thank you, Miss Hanua. I'm fine. Yi gave her a warm smile. His heart was filled with warmth. Ever since he first came to the Chaos region and met Ji Hanua, other than the time when they were in the same boat, they had only met once. It was not long ago when they were being chased by Yang Baikuan. But just from these two encounters, he had a very good impression of Ji Hanua. At that time, when a maid died in front of him, Yi could see that Ji Hanua's grief was sincere. Later, when they were being chased by the Sea Dragon Gang, Ji Hanua asked Yi to find a chance to escape while she went to delay the Sea Dragon Gang. Not long ago, Yi killed the Gimdeo sect protector. Ji Hanua must have kept the secret for him. Otherwise, Yang Baikuan would not have been fooled and fought with the devouring Spirit Emperor. And today, Ji Tianfu saved him here. Was it because of Ji Hanua? It's good that you're fine. Ji Hanua smiled. Her bright eyes and white teeth were dazzling. The hair on the girl's forehead swayed gently in the breeze. Her flawless face still looked a little immature, but one could already see her beauty. All right, we'll talk about other things later. The Gimdeo sect and the 7-Star Sword School will definitely find this place soon. Later, you just have to pretend that you're a disciple of Xinjiang sect. As long as you don't expose your identity, they won't be too presumptuous in front of me. Ji Tianfu looked at his daughter deeply and then looked at Yi. His face was serious as he said this. The Gimdeo sect and Xinjiang sect are working together. Yi was surprised. He had not thought about it until Ji Tianfu mentioned it. It seemed that the two sects were really angry. They were working together to deal with him. One had to know that this was the Chaos Realm. Although the 7-Star Sword School and the Gimdeo sect did not have any deep grudges, at least they were in an absolute position of competition. To be able to let go of so many differences between them, it could only be said that Yi had caused too much trouble. It made the two sects want to kill him. On the other hand, it was also because the forces around Yi were too strong that the two sects were afraid of him. The people who stopped you earlier were from the Gimdeo sect. However, they have learned their lesson and all of them have changed into loose cultivators' disguises. They have quite a number of people around here. Ji Tianfu said to Yi. Moreover, in this area, a large number of loose cultivators have already heard the news and ran away. Not many of them dare to stay. Hearing Ji Tianfu's words, Yi finally understood one thing. Previously, he had roasted meat and stewed soup with the intention of attracting those people so that it would be easier for him to get away from the 7-Star Sword School's Origin Emperor experts. However, he did not expect that in just a few words, he would be exposed. It turned out that there was such a reason behind it. Thinking about it, most of the loose cultivators had left this area because they did not want to be accidentally injured. Those who dared to stay were definitely powerful or disciples of sects who had formed groups. However, Yi had been alone at that time, roasting meat and stewing soup. He did not know anything about it. With just a few words, he had exposed himself. It was no wonder that the young man became suspicious. So that's how it is. Sui could not help but smile bitterly. It seemed that his luck was not too good. He had met too few people along the way, and the news was also blocked. That was why he had met those people from the Gimdeo sect. However, it was fortunate that Ji Tianfu had appeared in time. Otherwise, he would have been in trouble today. They're here. At this moment, Ji Tianfu suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky in the distance. Over there were a total of over a dozen figures flying over at high speed. This sort of fluctuation was quickly noticed by Su Yi, and he was clearly aware that those people were surely the large group of Origin Emperors from the Golden Saber sect and Seven-Star Sword sect. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Not long after Ji Tianfu's words, more than 10 figures arrived. All of them had powerful Origin Emperor aura flowing on their bodies. When they intertwined together, it was extremely terrifying. When the disciples of the Xinjian sect saw this, they were shocked. Su Yi looked around and instantly saw many familiar faces, especially the few experts from the Seven-Star Sword School and the people from the Gimdeo sect. Ji Tianfu, why is the Xinjian sect here? Looking at the people below, Yang Baikuan suddenly asked in a deep voice, "Is this the territory of the Gimdeo sect? Why can't the Xinjian sect be here?" Ji Tianfu snorted coldly and replied in an overbearing manner. It seemed that he did not care about the large number of experts on the other side. Yang Baikuan was speechless. He wanted to say something, but at this moment, a slightly plump middle-aged man beside him spoke. Ji Tianfu, you know why our two sects have sent so many people. I wonder if you have seen the kid that we are looking for? This slightly plump middle-aged man was the sect master of the Seven-Star Sword School, Ran Jinxian. Chapter 10:17. No. Hearing Ran Jinxuan's question, Ji Tianfu simply replied with 2 words. Ji Tianfu, that kid just appeared and disappeared again. There are only people from Xinjian sect around here. Could it be that you have hidden him? Yang Baikuan took another step forward and stared at Ji Tianfu as he asked loudly. Yang Baikuan was just furious. He also found it strange that the kid suddenly disappeared again. He did not really think that Ji Tianfu had hidden him. The possibility of that happening was too small. Ji Tianfu snorted coldly as a blazing light burst out from his eyes. Layers of green light curled around his body as the power of the Origin Emperor realm boiled. Ji Tianfu stared coldly at Yang Baikuan and said in a domineering manner, "My Xinjian faction's disciples are here to train. We don't have anything to do with your Golden Saber faction. If you, Yang Baikuan, want to cause trouble, then bring it on. Let's see if I, Ji Tianfu, am afraid of you." As Ji Tianfu spoke, a terrifying wave of water element Yuan Qi spread out and flowed in the air. Green light shot up to the sky. Ji Tianfu's attitude was tough as he stared at Yang Baikuan. It was as if he was saying, "If you want to fight, I, Ji Tianfu, will accompany you. It's best that you don't." At this moment, Ran Jinxian spoke again. "I believe that Xinjian faction will not hide anyone. Let's continue our search." Even though he said that, Ran Jinxuan's gaze lingered on the people from Xinjian sect for a long time. The person he was looking at the most was the young man in his 20s standing behind Ji Tianfu. In the end, he did not find any clues, so he had to give up. Seeing that Ran Jinxian had left with his people, Yang Baikuan snorted again. After that, he did not stay any longer and led his people into the distance. No one knew if the two of them believed Ji Tianfu or not. However, they did not fight with Ji Tianfu because Xinjian sect was really powerful. In fact, they did not know what kind of relationships Su Yi had with Xinjian sect. The young man that they had been looking for was right under their noses. Phew! After the people from Gimdeo sect and Seven-Star Sword School left, Ji Hanua exhaled and stuck out her tongue. Not too far away, the disciples of Xinjian sect looked at each other in confusion. The pressure they were under just now was too great. Over a dozen Origin Emperor realm experts appeared at the same time, making it hard for them to breathe. Furthermore, Some of the disciples were able to tell that the person the two sects wanted might very well be the young man beside the sect master. However, at the beginning, the sect leader had warned them not to speak carelessly. Thank you again, sect leader G. After those people left, Su-yi once again bowed to Ji Tianfu to express his thanks. This favor was too big, and Su-yi would remember it in his heart. I told you that you don't have to thank me. Ji Tianfu's domineering aura slowly dissipated. He looked at Su-yi and said, "Do you want to go back to Xianjian sect with me? It's absolutely safe there. 7-star sword school and Gimdeo sect will not dare to search there." His words were sincere, and it was obvious that he really wanted to invite Su-yi to go with him. Upon hearing Ji Tianfu's words, Ji Hanua's ears perked up. She stared at Su-yi, as if she was waiting for him to agree. Su-yi saw the two's reaction and suddenly felt a little awkward. He said, "There's no need for that, sect leader Ji. I will remember what happened today." "All right." Ji Tianfu did not insist. He only said, "Then you can come with us for a while. With Xianjian sect around, it will be relatively safer. Also, I would like to discuss something with you." "All right." Su-yi nodded his head in agreement. Soon the group set off. The senior powerhouses and disciples of Xianjian sect walked in front, passing through the forest. Ji Tianfu, Ji Hanua, and Su-yi purposely stayed behind. They followed from afar and chatted with each other. "Speaking of which, Xianjian sect owes you a favor first." "I owe you a favor," Ji Tianfu said to Su-yi, who was next to him as he walked. "So, you don't have to be too concerned about what happened today. Just treat it as returning your favor." Saying this, Ji Tianfu gave Ji Hanua a deep look. If it wasn't for his daughter, with Ji Tianfu's personality, he wouldn't have taken the initiative to save Su-yi. But now that things had developed to this point, Ji Tianfu's thoughts had undergone a huge change from the beginning. He could see that Su-yi was extraordinary. When he saved him earlier, this kid had already displayed a cultivation base at the first-level Origin Void stage. With such strength, even if placed among those first-rate forces, they would definitely be second to none. However, most importantly, how long had it been since they last met? At that time, Su-yi was only at the 3rd or 4th level Origin Void stage. This kind of cultivation speed was simply flying. He could be called a monster. "I won't beat around the bush with you. Let's get straight to the point." Ji Tianfu pondered for a moment and said, "I know you've gathered a few Origin Monarchs and Demon Monarchs around you. Moreover, they're very powerful. Their overall strength might not be inferior to an ordinary third-rate force. I don't know where you're from or your identity, but I'm starting to think more and more highly of you now. Therefore, I'd like to form an alliance with you." Ji Tianfu looked at Su-yi quietly after he finished his sentence. He knew that since this kid could gather a few monarchs, he must have his own methods. Perhaps there was a powerful force behind him. It was not easy to find a trustworthy ally in the Chaos region. However, based on Ji Tianfu's understanding, this kid's character was trustworthy. Most importantly, the force behind him was very powerful. "Sect leader G wants to form an alliance with me? Aren't you afraid of becoming enemies with the 7-star sword school and the Gimdeo sect at the same time?" Su-yi raised his eyebrows and asked when he heard what Ji Tianfu said. He was also puzzled. Logically speaking, it was not a good deal for an ally to attract two powerful enemies. "Of course I'm afraid." Ji Tianfu smiled and said, "That's why I want to form an alliance with you in secret. Otherwise, it'll be very disadvantageous for both of us. After all, the Xianjian sect has a deep grudge with the Green Sanctuary sect. If our relationship is exposed, it won't be good for you either. To put it bluntly, I'm not trying to get anything from you. I'm just interested in your potential." Ji Tianfu spoke very seriously. It did not seem like he was joking. "Sect leader Ji, you're really honest." Su-yi nodded. He was pleased with Ji Tianfu's attitude. Su-yi felt that it was more believable for Ji Tianfu to speak so frankly. However, he was thinking about something else. Su-yi really wanted to tell Ji Tianfu that he had also gone against the Green Sanctuary sect, and that young Master Wang had died in his hands. Of course, Suti would not tell him about this. It was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Think about it. There's no need to rush to give me an answer, Ji Tianfu said. He then turned to Su Yi and said, in a few days, we'll be leaving for the 9-star city to participate in the Alliance Conference. If you're going, you can come along. As for what we talked about just now, we can talk about it in detail after the Alliance Conference. The Alliance Conference was just around the corner, and there was not much time left. The location of the Alliance Conference was quite a distance away. They had to leave in advance. All right, Su Yi nodded and said, but I don't know when I'll be leaving. If there's no news by then, Sect Leader Ji, you don't have to wait for me. We'll meet again when we reach the destination. Su Yi made a mental note of the name 9-Star City. The Alliance Conference will be held there. I hope you can take care of Han Nuo and the others during the Alliance Conference. Ji Tianfu looked at Su Yi and then at Ji Hannuo. His eyes were deep, and no one knew what he was thinking about. It wasn't hard for Ji Tianfu to imagine that with Su Yi's strength, he would definitely shine in the Alliance Conference. Therefore, if he could take care of the disciples of the Xinjiang sect, it would be a great thing. If I can do it, it's just a piece of cake. Su Yi nodded and then cupped his fists at Ji Tianfu and Ji Hannuo. He said, Sect Leader Ji, Ms. Hannuo, please stop here. I'll be there soon, and I'll go back by myself. It's not convenient for me to invite you over now. If there's a chance in the future, I'll invite you over to the Bawang sect for tea. After estimating his location, Su Yi knew that he was not far from the territory of the Yin Yang Emperor of the Dead. Therefore, he immediately said goodbye to Ji Tianfu and Ji Hannuo. Okay, we'll meet again. Goodbye. Ji Tianfu and Ji Hannuo did not ask him to stay. They just nodded and said goodbye to Su. However, one could see that the depths of the girl's watery eyes had dimmed a little. Father, are you really going to join forces with him? Seeing Su Yi's figure disappear into the forest, Ji Hannuo came back to her senses after a while and asked her father. I've always felt that this guy is not simple. However, the power that he has shown is beyond my imagination. He's growing too fast, and he has many experts around him. According to my estimation, he will really rise in a few years. When that time comes, it's hard to say if the Xinjiang sect will be able to compete with him. Ji Tianfu pondered for a while and continued. Therefore, I think that before he really grows up, it'll be easier for us to build a good relationship with him. Although it's called an alliance, I'm afraid that there won't be any real alliance in a short period of time. After all, both of us have powerful enemies. I see. Ji Hannuo pursed her lips, and there was a strange ripple in her eyes. Then, Ji Tianfu looked at his daughter with a playful smile and said, Actually, I'm doing this for you. Chapter 10:18. Together with Ji Tianfu, Su Mo had successfully shaken off the pursuit of the 7-star sword school in Gimdeo sect. Hence, Sui did not take long to return to his own territory after they parted ways. Should I form an alliance with Xinjiang sect? In fact, Su Yi had been thinking about this question along the way. He had never thought of forming an alliance with any power. Those who were able to make a living in the Chaos region were not easy to deal with, and there were no soft persimmons. In the Chaos realm, everything depended on one's fists and one's own strength. Whoever was more powerful would have the right to speak. Naturally, Xinjiang sect was no exception. Hence, Su Yi did not reply to Ji Tianfu immediately, and neither did Ji Tianfu rush him. However, Su Yi had dealt with Xinjiang sect a few times. Regardless of whether it was Ji Tianfu or Ji Hannuo, he had a good impression of them. However, they did not know each other well. If he were to agree to an alliance so hastily, it would seem a little too rash. Sui thought for a long time and felt that Ji Tianfu might have the same idea. Let's talk about it after the alliance meeting. Su Yi did not think too much about it and went straight to the back of the mountain. Seeing that Su Mo had finally returned, the Xianyang golden demonic falcon, silver cloud leopard, red wind black-eyed demonic monkey, wolf-head demonic bat, and the other savage demonic beasts were relieved. It had been quite some time since the devouring spirit sovereign was lured away from this place. This had made the savage demonic beasts very worried. Now that Su-yi had returned safely, he went straight to the cave at the back of the mountain and asked the savage demonic beast to stand guard outside. Swoosh! Su-yi summoned the mysterious space and walked in. Boss, master, faction leader. When they saw Su-yi enter, Su Xiaoshui, Green Emperor, Yin-Yang Ghost Emperor, Devouring Spirit Sovereign, and Huang Jian immediately gathered around him. I have shaken off the pursuit and returned. Don't worry. Su-yi smiled and told them the news. However, it seemed that other than Huang Jian, who let out a sigh of relief, almost no one else had any reaction. Su-yi knew that the three Beast Emperors were all very strong. They weren't afraid of the 7-star sword school at all. Even handsome Su wasn't afraid of the consequences. However, when Su-yi told them about the alliance between the Gimdeo sect and the 7-star sword school, their expressions changed. If he was still the Beast Emperor of the past, they would naturally have nothing to fear. But now, they were all members of the Bawang sect and had their own forces. Their way of thinking was different. The harvest this time is really great. Su-yi was overjoyed and began to carefully examine the mysterious space. He had already entered this place once when he was in a mine, but he was in a hurry at that time and did not carefully feel the changes here. Phew! Su-yi took a deep breath and felt that his heart was filled with the rich spiritual energy. The thick spiritual energy entered his body like a thick fog and immediately made him feel refreshed. The entire mysterious space was like this. Even the treasured mountain gates that occupied the rare mountains and rivers in the world probably didn't have such rich spiritual energy. Boss, can I drink some of the spiritual liquid? Handsome Su flew to Su-yi's shoulder and raised one of his wings, pointing at the spiritual liquid in the small pool. The small pool was full and looked like it was about to overflow. It was all spiritual liquid. Su-yi raised his hand and knocked little handsome Su on the head. This time, however, it was a gentle knock. You glutton, you must have secretly drunk a lot of it, right? Su-yi glared at handsome Su and asked. He remembered that the spiritual liquid looked like it was about to overflow the last time he came in. Although it looked like there was still a lot, Su-yi knew that if handsome Su didn't secretly drink it, the spiritual liquid would have overflowed. Seeing that his actions were seen through by Su-yi, handsome Su laughed and said, I don't want to waste it. It would be a pity to waste such a good treasure. You're so capable. Su-yi rolled his eyes at him and scolded him with a smile. He didn't really blame handsome Su. This time, there was so much spiritual liquid that it was nothing for handsome Su to drink a little. The only thing that surprised Su-yi was that handsome Su was still the same as before. After drinking the spiritual liquid, he looked as if nothing had happened. Su-yi really didn't know how his small body digested such a huge amount of energy. So much spiritual liquid. Everyone can have a share. With excitement and joy, Su-yi put all the spiritual liquid in the small pool into jade bottles. There were hundreds of bottles. It was a big harvest. The Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Ghost Emperor, the Devouring Spirit Emperor, and Huang Jian each received 2 bottles of spiritual liquid from Su-yi. They were all overjoyed. Although the spiritual liquid is good, don't be greedy for the pleasure of breaking through. The most important thing is to work steadily and surely. Seeing that they were all very happy, Su-yi had to remind them, I still have a lot of treasures here. When you need them, just come to me. I just hope that you won't lose the big picture for the small and only focus on breaking through. That will only waste the spiritual liquid. In fact, you know this better than I do. Hearing Su-yi's words, the few of them who had been extremely agitated earlier all calmed down. They were all at the Emperor realm, so they naturally knew this in their hearts. However, Su-yi knew that it was not easy for some of them to break through to their current cultivation in these years, especially Huang Jian, who was trapped in the original Void Realm for many years. It was not that they had never seen treasures before, but something as precious as the spiritual liquid was something that they did not even dare to think about in the past. Therefore, when they suddenly obtained so many benefits and saw the possibility of breaking through in a short period of time, they would probably not care about anything else and just want to break through. Thank you for your reminder, Sect Master. Huang Jian bowed and looked at Su Yi gratefully. Although he had calmed down, he still could not help but be excited because of the treasures he obtained. Grandpa Ginseng. Su Yi did not favor one and gave a lot of spiritual liquid to the blood jasper spirit ginseng. Grandpa Ginseng had been in this mysterious space all this time. If he took a bath in the spiritual liquid when he was not around, Su Yi would not be able to do anything. Fortunately, the blood jasper spirit ginseng would not do that now, which made Su Yi very happy. I have received so many favors from you. How can I repay this karma in the future? The blood jasper spirit ginseng sighed, but he did not reject Su Yi's good intentions. After taking the spiritual liquid, he buried himself in the ground again. Such a big space, I have to make use of it. Otherwise, it would be a shameful waste. Su Yi looked around the huge, mysterious space. Compared to before, this place had once again undergone a transformation. Invisible, a terrifying power was entrenched in it. It was as if there was a pair of God's eyes in the sky, quietly looking at them. In the space, the spiritual chi and scale had increased greatly. It was extraordinary. In that small medicinal field, the spirit herbs planted there were also growing healthily, and their grades have been greatly improved. The Xinjian sect's Xianling fruit tree was also growing well. However, after so long, there were still no signs of the fruit tree blooming. Su Yi felt that this place could be greatly developed. He could plant spiritual herbs, fruit trees, and so on everywhere. The perfect result would be to plant the entire space. At that time, he would have an endless supply of spiritual herbs. Of course, he also felt that this dream was beautiful, but it was almost impossible to realize. This stone. In the end, Su Yi's gaze returned to a piece of green stone. This was obtained from the 7-star sword school's mine. Su Yi's soul was almost sucked into it. It was very strange. If one did not touch it with their spiritual chi or body, this green stone did not seem to be too special. He asked the Green Emperor, the Yin-Yang Emperor of the Dead, the Devouring Spirit Emperor, and Huang Jian, who were beside him, to know what this stone was. However, they said that they had never seen or heard of this stone. The people of the 7-star sword school valued this thing very much. Although they might not know its origin, they must have found out some uses for it. Su Yi made this judgment in his heart. He then muttered to himself, "Let's not bother about it for now. I'll ask Big Brother when he comes back. Maybe he will know something." After that, Su Yi called the Silver Cloud Leopard, Red Wind Black-Eyed Demonic Monkey, Xianyang Golden Demonic Falcon, Wolf-Headed Demonic Bat, and the other savage beasts into the mysterious space. He gave each savage beast some spiritual liquid. Su Yi asked them to cultivate in seclusion here. He wanted them to stabilize their cultivation so that they could break through as soon as possible. Outside the mysterious space, there were a few savage beasts guarding from time to time. They took turns to guard outside with the other savage beasts inside. The Alliance Conference is coming. Let's try to break through to the next level here. Su Yi began to cultivate with all his might. He did not want to waste any time. As he sat cross-legged, waves of ferocious energy burst out from his body. The Origin Supreme technique was activated. It seemed to have an invisible resonance with this space. It produced a great pressure that shook heaven and earth. The savage beasts in the space were shocked. However, perhaps because of the demonic spirit contract, they were not afraid of this pressure. They had gained the recognition of the space. Whoosh, whoosh. After an unknown number of days, layers of energy waves rippled out from Su Yi's body. They spread out to the surroundings like water ripples. In his body, origin energy flowed like a raging river. It emitted a ferocious whistling sound with a great momentum. Waves of ferocious energy rose from his body, causing Su Yi's aura to become more and more majestic, until a certain moment when all of this reached its peak, it directly exploded. With a rumble, the space trembled and woke up the other people who were in seclusion. Boss is going to break through. What a powerful force. Sect leader has only broken through to the second level of the Origin Void stage, but he can actually trigger such a vast force. So Master is actually so terrifying that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.